Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Midlife Crisis, the show where I talk about every single DC crossover event in chronological order. This week we will be continuing and finishing 52, the DC Comics event that was 52 issues over the course of 52 weeks, one issue a week. If you haven't seen part 1 of this, then I highly recommend going back and watching that, because otherwise you are going to be missing a ton of context, because we're right in the middle of this event and a lot of stuff has happened. So go back, watch that, come back later and watch this video. So without further ado, let's just get straight back into 52 with issue 27. Alright, so issue 27 begins with Ralph Dibney in the Helmet of Fate meeting with the Spectre. For some reason, the Spectre says that he doesn't have a host. I don't know what happened to Crispus Allen, but apparently he isn't the host of Spectre anymore. I don't know if that was like a continuity thing where they kind of messed up with the continuity, or there was a comic that I just didn't read where he lost the Spectre's powers. I don't know. This happens right after Infinite Crisis, which is where he became the Spectre, so maybe this was just a mistake made by Jeff Johns and the other writers. So he goes to the Spectre and he asks, Ralph asks the Spectre if he can bring Sue back to life. And Ralph says, of course I can, but you have to do something for me. And he brings Ralph to Eclipso, Jean Loring, because if you remember, during after Infinite Crisis, Jean Loring was possessed by Eclipso and became the new one, and she was the one responsible for killing Sue Dibney. So Spectre tells Ralph that he needs to torture Jean, and if he manages to break Jean Loring, then he will bring Sue Dibney back to life. And the way that Ralph is going to do this is he's given Spectre's power so that he can fight Eclipso. So he fights Jean Loring and he teleports her away from Spectre and the Helmet of Fate, because Ralph has plans for Jean Loring. Meanwhile, Wave Rider is just inside a house somewhere with a bunch of clocks, and he's just hiding in here, kind of in the fetal position. Then all of a sudden, this character called the Time Commander appears, and he's stuck inside an hourglass, and he starts berating Wave Rider. He's like, you promised Kronos and me, you promised all of the Time Stealers that Rip Hunter would give us a reprieve if we joined your fight, but you lied, and he just turns into sand and dies. And it turns out the person that put him inside the hourglass was Skeets. Skeets shows up and he basically says, you need to tell me what I want to know, otherwise you will end up like the Time Commander. What he wants to know is where Rip Hunter is, or when Rip Hunter is. Skeets kind of wants to have the opportunity, it seems like he just wants to kill Rip Hunter, and he's even willing to go back to the point of time that Rip Hunter was a baby and kill him as a baby. And Wave Rider is like, there's no way you're ever going to find out where Rip Hunter is. You're not even going to be able to find him as a baby, because nobody knows who he is. Who his real name is. And, so Skeets is like, hey, you talk about his history. Tell me, Linear Man, do you know mine? Do you know where the golden metal that makes my body impervious to the ravages of time portals comes from? Do you know from whose corpse it was burned off? Discovered in a deep grave 500 years from now? Take a guess. And Skeets just brings out a bunch of guns and starts zapping Wave Rider, presumably killing him. Because apparently, according to Skeets, he was made from the same metals that Wave Rider is made out of. And as he is dying, there is a clock that looks like a cat. It's one of those cat clocks, looking at Wave Rider as Skeets, supposedly kills him off panel, though we don't get any confirmation yet. Meanwhile, Renee Montoya and Charlie Sassaz are in Nanda Parbat, where Renee is being taught by Rich Dragon how to do martial arts and stuff. Meanwhile, Charlie's friend Tot is reading the Intergang's Bible to figure out what that's all about. And it's during this time that Renee learns that Charlie has cancer, because he used to smoke just like Renee, and now he has lung cancer. And apparently he found out 7 months ago, and he doesn't have much time left. So yeah, Charlie's dying. She's like, why me, Charlie? 8 billion people. Why me? That's the question, isn't it? And then he leaves her to just kind of like sulk. Because she's about to lose one of the guys that she's become incredibly close to, you know, all this time. She's only just learnt that he's dying. So they learn from the Intergang Bible that Kate Kane is in danger. Because the Bible talks about Cain the demon and his daughter, Cain. And so Renee puts 2 and 2 together and is like, we need to warn Kate Kane because she must be, like, her life is probably in danger. Meanwhile, Ralph Dibney brings Jean Loring to the past, to the day that Sue Dibney died, because he's going to force her to watch her die. And he's not only going to force her to watch her die once, he's going to force her to watch her die for the rest of time. Like, he is planning on sticking her in a time loop where she will have to watch Sue Dibney die over and over and over again. And so, you know, Sue comes in, they watch her as she comes into the room, she picks up the phone, which is the moment that she's going to die, and Jean just looks at Ralph and is like, Ralph, look away. You're only punishing yourself. And Ralph starts tearing up, and he can't do it. He's just like, ah! He's like clutching his head as he teleports back to where the Spectre and the Helmet of Fate are. He looks at the Spectre as the Spectre takes his power away from Ralph, and he's like, I couldn't. You tricked me. He's like, I made no false claims. You simply failed to uphold your end of the bargain. We are both the poorer for it. Like, Fate, get me away from him. From him. Do you have a destination in mind? Yeah. I know who can help me now. The Spectre may be repugnant, but he's not a liar, and he told me something crucial. I can get Sue back, and there's a better way than through him. Take me to Nanda Parbat. And so it seems like Ralph is going to travel to Nanda Parbat, and if there's one thing we know about Nanda Parbat, it's known for its Lazarus pits. So, is Ralph going to try and resurrect Sue using a Lazarus pit? And if so, will that be the worst decision in his life? Because usually when somebody gets resurrected by a Lazarus pit, they're resurrected without a soul. They're not usually the same person. It's how Jason Todd ended up becoming so aggressive and stuff as Red Hood, because he lacks a soul. Or it's not necessarily that you lack a soul, it's more so that, like, you lose a piece of your soul every single time you use the Lazarus Pit. It's why Ra's al Ghul changed as a person the more and more he uses it. The more he uses it, the more insane he becomes, the more, the worse he becomes, you know? It twists and distorts his mind. So issue 28 begins with Renee and Charlie using the bat signal in order to, or like making their own makeshift bat signal in order to get Kate's attention, which they succeed in doing. And so she shows up, and before she can just leave, because she's like, alright, you succeeded in calling me here, well, goodbye. Renee is like, no, we know some stuff about Intergang, we found this picture in a book, it's supposed to represent you getting your heart ripped out, so, like, Intergang is gonna try and kill you. And so Kate's just like, alright, I'm interested. Let's see what's going on. Meanwhile, in Australia, that Johnny Wawara guy, sicks his Red Tornado, because he's built Red Tornado as a new robot. He sicks it on, like, a bunch of white guys who come and try to, like, run all the Aborigine people out of the town. So yeah, Johnny has, like, his Red Tornado go after them and attack them, which he does, and he keeps repeatedly saying 52 over and over again. So these guys pull out their guns and they try to shoot down Red Tornado, and the Aborigine people believe it to be Tornado dreaming, which is supposed to be like a made-up thing in this comic that is a reference to, like, dream time for Aborigine people. And so they start beating, like, the Aborigine people, like, start beating up and tearing down Red Tornado. And Johnny's just like, what do you have to do that for? Like, it ain't right. You want this thing to kill someone? And so they're just, like, beating it up. And they just let Red Tornado get ripped to pieces. And then Johnny gets arrested. It's like, but you don't understand. He's alive. He's alive! As he gets arrested. And then, like, the white guys get to take over the town. And the Aborigine people get run out. And then Red Tornado's remains are given to salvage and taken away. as he repeatedly says 52. Meanwhile, Lobo is with Animal Man and Starfire and Adam Strange, and they're all being attacked by the Emerald Head that Lobo stole the Emerald Eye from. And so they fight this thing, and eventually they defeat it. And then they find out that it's not even a giant alien head. It's just a Green Lantern who failed to save his sector from the Stygian that's going around destroying planets. And so they've been attacking a Green Lantern this whole time, like a Green Lantern that's just gone insane. And it's all because Lobo took his eye from him so he couldn't protect his sector. And so they decide that they're going to have to continue following Lobo because they need to find this thing that is dusting planets and stop it before it gets to the Vega system and beyond. And yeah, stop it from destroying more planets. So that's what their plan is. And meanwhile, Kate Kane and Renee and Charlie, like the Questions, they all go to a nearby church where they fight a giant lizard hybrid guy, and they also fight Bruno Metahuman, and he almost strangles Kate to death, but Renee and Charlie hold him at gunpoint, and so he throws Kate at them and makes his escape, which Renee is just like, man, I hate it when they do that. And yeah, that's all that happens in this issue. So issue 29 begins with some of the JSA members, Alan Scott, Ted Grant, and Jay Garrick, all meeting with each other because they're really the only members left at the moment. Everyone else has been split up in some way. Characters like Jade have died. And at this moment, Lex Luthor's homemade metahumans fly by, including the new Infinity Inc., which really hits close to home with the JSA because a lot of their children or relatives were on Infinity Inc., and that's when the worst possible thing that could ever happen in Alan's life happens at this very moment. Lex Luthor unveils his very own version of Jade. Jade was obviously Alan's daughter and the brother of Obsidian. And so Obsidian shows up and is like, this is wrong. They should not be using her name. They do not have the rights to use her name. Because Lex Luthor has apparently bought the rights to use names like Jade and stuff. So he just goes out and he straight up attacks this new Jade and is like, you take off that costume right now. Like, I don't want to hurt you, but like, take off that freaking costume. You know, and so they fight back against him, and Alan ends up having to cut in. You know, because he's like, you gotta stop this. You know, you're hurting, you're putting people at risk around here. Like, you don't want to hurt any of the innocent people that are surrounding us right now, right? And so Skyman appears. He's like, oh, like, Alan's like, this is over. And Skyman appears and he's like, over? Your son just attacked one of our teammates. You're lucky that's all he did, Skyman. You don't have any idea why you've upset my son. Hey, hold on a second, Grandpa. Don't assume we don't know anything about where our names came from. Atom Smasher, the guy who betrayed the Justice Society with Black Adam and went to prison for it, he used to call himself Nuclon. But I'm not here to carry on his name or honor him or anything. Like Jade said, I'm here to do a better job than he ever did. We get that you founded the mass and the capes and everything, but you can't tell us how to do our jobs forever. That's why the first Infinity Inc. was founded. Your kids didn't want to listen to you anymore. You're leaping into a life you're not ready for. Listen, man, when the world goes to hell, when everything looks like it's going to end, I promise you, I'll be the first one running into battle with Infinity Inc. at my side. You need to finally face it. The world doesn't need antiques watching up for it when it's got hundreds of kids like us. Let's go, son. And Alan Scott and Obsidian leave. So this whole plot is just like really interesting of like the JSA having to deal with this new generation of heroes who it very much feels like a new, like kind of like a different take on, like a similar take on Kingdom Come, but in the main continuity instead of taking place on a different Earth, and just the JSA reacting to these new versions of characters that are directly related to them, and they have like an actual connection to that character. It's really interesting. Meanwhile, all of the professors that are stuck on Oolong Island, all the mad scientists, have Thanksgiving together, which Dr. Sivana uses a chainsaw to cut open a pterodactyl turkey, is what they have for dinner. It's like pterodactyl. And so Will ends up having to go and use the bathroom because he got turkey all over himself, and that's when This other character comes to meet with him. They never actually mention this woman's name, so I can't tell you who she is. She's just a woman with blonde hair who is attracted to Will, or is just kind of trying to manipulate him. I really hate this character. She's an awful person, and I hope that she dies at some point, because, like, she refers to all the mad scientists as, like, autistic midget savants, which is just, like, using autism as a way to insult somebody is just, like, she's just saying all of the worst things and just being a terrible person. So yeah, I hope that she dies at some point, because she's awful. And she only gets worse later on when Shang-Su shows up. The big egg guy, and like the big egg looking dude with the spider legs shows up, and he kills a guy because the guy laughs at him. He just straight up kills this guy because he says, like, oh, the mad scientists are all calling me names behind my back. Some people said egg foo. Like, they think that's funny. Do you think that's funny? And the guy smirks, and he just kills him. And then, like, Shang-Tsu's just like, is a mutant flesh machine as far beyond the capabilities of your puny vermin species as you are beyond the swarming protozoa funny? What entitles you to laugh at me? And Will's just like, I wasn't laughing. Killing people who make a weird noise at the wrong time isn't very funny. And so Shang-Tsu wants to know the progress on Will's plutonium prototype. Apparently he's making something called plutonium. Like, he's making plutonium for Shang-Tsu. I don't know if he's straight up making the plutonium itself, or if he's making a robot called plutonium. Like a metal man called plutonium. I don't know. Shang-Tsu just wants to know the progress on it. And Will says that he's getting around to it, but, you know, he just needs to get into the zone in order to work on it properly. And that's when this unnamed blonde woman says that Will works best when he's not on his meds. If he's off his meds, then his brain starts wiring and he goes into, like, a mad state where he just gets shit done. And so they decide to take him off his meds, and Will is like, no, don't. Like, you know what'll happen? Like, if you take me off my meds, like, I'll go insane. Like, I won't be able to control myself. Like, Professor, don't let them do this to me. They'll make me insane. And so Will gets taken away, and this blonde woman is like, why don't you take Will's place at the table, Shang-Tsu? Let's all give thanks to Intergang and the glorious dawn of the global crime state. I do love seeing good little boys turn into evil supercriminals. I'm going to enjoy working with you, Will Magnus. And meanwhile, Jay Garrick says goodbye to Wildcat because he needs to go spend Thanksgiving with Joanne. And he invites Wildcat over, but Wildcat's like, I already have plans myself. And it turns out that those plans are just to drink alone inside the JSA headquarters. So yeah, Ted's got a bit of a sad life. Meanwhile, John Henry Irons has teamed up with Beast Boy and Dr. Midnight in order to try and expose Lex Luthor's Metahuman program. And so Carla goes and talks to John, and John reveals that he's losing his powers. Like, they're just like, the metal has been peeling off. So he says to Carla that this isn't necessarily a, like, because they believe that, like, the person took a second treatment that took their powers away, but it turns out that that might not be the case, and that the powers seem to just have an expiration date. Alright, issue 30 begins with a monologue about Batman's entire life up until this point. Bruce Wayne has given up the Batman title for now, and has gone away somewhere. Meanwhile, Nightwing and Robin had taken time off, like half a year, and they finally returned to Gotham to find it overrun with Intergang. And so they start fighting Intergang, you know, and Nightwing tells Tim to go and find Bruce and just update him on what's happening in Gotham City. Meanwhile, Renee Montoya and Charlie have been moved to Kate's apartment, where Charlie is in critical condition because of his cancer. They're giving him morphine right now to help it to lessen the pain, but they tell Renee that he needs to be moved to a hospital now and put support on there. And Renee's like, I don't really want to send him to a hospital where he's just gonna be on a tube until he dies. And she's like, you don't really have much of a choice. And so Renee plans on leaving with Charlie, and Kate's just like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna live in his van? Like, just live here. Do it. You know? You owe it to me. Just stay here where you're gonna be safe. And Renee reluctantly agrees to stay at Kate's apartment. And she then goes into Charlie's room. Like, you mind if I sit with you for a while? And, like, sits on the bed. He's like, I'm afraid. I'm not very chatty right now. Like, it's alright, Charlie. I'm not either. And so she just sits in the room with him, and Charlie just kind of looks at her smiling, you know. It's one of the best things of this series so far is seeing the character, seeing the development of the relationship between Charlie and Renee over the course of the series. So that when you learn that he is dying of cancer, like, it's really sad. And I'm not looking forward to future events because I know it's just going to get sadder and sadder the closer he gets to death, and you know, the closer it comes to the day where Renee loses him. So it turns out this is the first time we've seen Bruce Wayne in 52. He finally shows up for the first time. He is in the middle of the desert, facing these guys known as the Ten-Eyed Brothers. The history of them is that they are a reference to a supervillain, a classic Batman villain called Ten-Eyed Man, who was a mercenary who had, he had optical nerves in the ends of his fingers, so he could see through his fingers, but he has no eyes, or he's blind. So he sees entirely through his fingers. And so these Ten-Eyed Brothers are basically the same thing, but there's lots of them. And so Bruce has hired them in order to... because apparently he trained with them when he was becoming Batman, like, years ago. He hired them so that they could slice the demons out of him, both figuratively and literally. Like, they pull out swords and they start slicing at Bruce. You know, and Bruce fights back and manages to face them, and he's like, I didn't walk all this way just to die. 10 eyes, 20, 100, gazing in judgment. The 10-eyed tribes of the empty quarter are numberless. If you flinch, if you shudder, you will not survive. And Bruce is like, do it. And they all slash at him. And that's when Tim arrives. He's like, Bruce, you look like you need a hand. The 10-eyed men kill demons, Tim. I asked them to kill mine. I asked them to cut out all the dark, fearful, paranoid urges I've allowed to corrupt my life. And they did. It's over. Batman is gone. And Bruce just opens up his arms wide and is like, yes! Feels like he's been, like, a huge weight has just been lifted off his shoulders. Meanwhile, Kate heads out in order to find Mannheim as Batwoman. She starts fighting a bunch of his animal hybrids. And that's when Nightwing comes out, because Kate's just like, are you going to stand there or are you going to help me? And it's revealed to be Nightwing that's watching her, and so they start fighting together. Nightwing hits on her, but Kate is like, you're not really my type, because obviously she's gay. And they fight these hybrids together, and Nightwing was like, hey, like, we should do this more often. It's nice meeting you, you know. I'm going to go to Burnley tomorrow night, begin working my way south, and then Kate's like, and I'll take Tri-Corner and begin working my way north, unless you have an objection. And Batwoman's like, nope, and she shoots a grappling hook and heads up onto a nearby building, and Nightwing's like, nice meeting you too. So we got a little team up between Nightwing and Batwoman. Alright, so issue 31 begins with us finally learning the name of this alien woman that is going around and dusting planets. You know, the one that Lobo, Starfire, Adam Strange, and Animal Man are after? Turns out her name is the Lady Styx. She travels to these planets with these giant cube-like spaceships, which she implants into the planets, and then all of her undead soldiers come out of these spaceships and start destroying everything. They're currently attacking a planet that is being protected by Captain Comet, and they take down Captain Comet, they kidnap him, and they start torturing him. And there is a member of the Green Lantern Corps who is also on this planet, and he communicates with the Guardians, and the Guardians are the ones that reveal it to the reader who the Lady Styx is, and they explain, like, what she does and who she is. We also learn that she loves to eat Green Lantern rings as well. And that's when Lobo, Animal Man, Starfire, and Adam Strange show up, and Lobo is like, well, here we are. May I introduce you to the Lady Styx? So we're setting up this confrontation between their group and the Lady Styx, and so we'll have to see how that transpires in the future issues. Meanwhile, Infinity Inc. are having some complicated stuff within their own group. There's one member called Everyman, and he has the ability to transform into anything. But in order to do that, he needs to eat things. you know? And one of the members, whose name is Sierra, who I'm pretty sure is supposed to be Jade, like she's the new Jade, she says that she swore she saw him in her room, like, the other day when she was getting changed or something. And so they're all getting a bit creeped out by him. And that's when Skyman comes in. His real name is Jake. And he makes a little bit of a joke about it. And that freaks Sierra out. And she's like, I gotta go. It's like, Sierra, wait. I'm sorry, it was a joke. Because Jake was like, oh, maybe he was like eating your panties or something to get your powers or something like that. It's like a really bad joke. And it turns out Natasha has fallen for Jake. She's like, don't worry, like, I'll go and talk to her. He's like, I'm really sorry. She's like, I know. And she kisses Jake. He's like, I'll catch up with you later, okay? He's like, okay. And then Jake turns back into Everyman, because it turns out that Everyman was disguising himself as Jake. So he really is a freaking creep who goes as far as to sexually harass people now by pretending to be other people. Meanwhile, Ralph Dibney meets with Cassie Sandsmark, Wonder Girl, alongside the Helmet of Fate, and she explains to him that she found out who Davin was, the guy that was the leader of the Cult of Connor, and that he completely bailed on her, and it turned out that he really was a scammer. But she truly believes that Sueprnova is Connor Kent. And as soon as she says that, Ralph is like, oh, that's great, Cassie. Thank you. And he's like, Mr. Dibney, wait, don't go, Mr. Dibney. And he just leaves. And she looks at because she got the stuff about Devem in the mail from a mysterious person. And she looks at the package that she received, and it says, Marcellus, France. So it seems like maybe she's going to be heading to France. And so Ralph does something really surprising. He goes and visits Sueprnova, because Ralph knows Sueprnova. But he doesn't just know Sueprnova. He knows who Sueprnova is. And he says it's not Connor. And that he's really sad that she believes that it's Connor, and he feels the need to tell her. And Sueprnova is also surprised that Ralph knows who he is. And he's like, how did you figure it out? The clues were there. Once I used my head, the who made perfect sense. The powers threw me, but when I saw them from the proper angle, I sussed out the one device that could tie them all together. Superman being out of the picture was the key. One of two keys, if you want to be cute about it. Mind telling me the why? I can't. You can never be sure who's. I'm going to go. Don't contact me again. We shouldn't be meeting at all. Could you at least clear things with the girl? If Cassie's so sure I'm her lost love, why isn't she taking the initiative? My guess is that deep down she knows it's a fantasy waiting for you to unmask keeps that alive. And she'll just have to keep waiting. There's too much at stake. Goodbye, Ralph, and good luck. You know what'd be the craziest twist? If it turned out Sueprnova was Booster Gold the entire time, and that he created this Sueprnova character as a way to plan out his own death so that he could then be Sueprnova 24/7, you know? Like, there's some huge grand scheme that he created using future technology to create Sueprnova, and, like, that would be insane. That would be a great twist. Also, something that is worth noting is that Captain Comet is obviously being tortured by Lady Styx, and she attaches him to the front of a ship, and then he seems to have, like, mind control powers or something. I don't know a lot about Captain Comet, but he seems to have mind control powers, and he's able to shift his consciousness from, like, body to body or something, because he says that he's going to jettison his primary consciousness, and then he says, Adam Blake, out. And then, like, the next panel is just black, so I think that's supposed to be saying that Adam Blake, Captain Comet, has, like, shot his own consciousness out of his body and is sending it somewhere else. If you're enjoying the video so far, then please think about liking and subscribing to the channel, because it just helps me grow it and get more views, etc. You know, looking to try and grow this channel and, yeah, get as many subscribers as I can. The next goal is 100, so if I can get to 100 subscribers, that would be amazing. So, issue 32 begins with Ralph Dibney venturing to Nanda Parbat with the Helmet of Fate, where he comes across an abominable snowman and an amulet that is lying on the ground. And so the abominable snowman just comes out of nowhere and attacks him, causing an avalanche, which then falls on top of it. But the avalanche also knocks Ralph over. And that's when he is found by a mysterious dude who brings him to Nanda Parbat. Meanwhile, at the Titans Tower, Beast Boy and Raven are holding a recruitment drive for new Titans after their previous members recently left. And this includes a lot of the Everymen coming and auditioning. Those are the Metahumans that were created by Lex Luthor. But there's also other characters here that are there for the recruitment drive, like Argent and Prism, who are from a different Teen Titans series. And then Osiris shows up with Sobek. That's the name of the crocodile that he became friends with. It's called Sobek. And Osiris wants to join the Teen Titans as well. But Captain Marvel Jr. basically says, no, you can't join us because you're related to Black Adam, and Black Adam recently ripped a guy in half on live television, so we can't have you joining us. And Osiris is like, yeah, but I've not done anything wrong. Like, I recently created a whole bunch of hospitals throughout an entire country. You know? And Captain Marvel Jr. is like, well, if you can prove to us that you are a good person, then I might back you up when it comes to actually recruiting you to the team. But until then, we can't recruit you. Meanwhile, Lobo, Animal Man, Adam Strange, and Starfire are getting ready to face the Lady Styx, who is going to be traveling to Earth in order to destroy it. And so they need to stop her before she gets to Earth, because Adam is like, oh, we should call everyone on Earth and get as many superheroes as we can to come help us. And Starfire is like, no, we are the front line for this. We need to stop her before she even gets there, because I don't even want to risk any of my friends dying. And so Lobo's like, alright guys, next stop, hell. Ralph Dibney wakes up in Nanda Parbat, where he meets the guy that saved him. His name is Yao Fei, and he's a member of the Great Ten, which is the team of Chinese superheroes. And apparently the Yeti that Ralph had fought in the Snowy Mountains is called Hu Wei, and he is also a reserve member of the Great Ten. He's a regular guy that was given the ability to turn into a Yeti, and there's an amulet that's supposed to help compress his rage, but he took the amulet off and started going on a rampage, and so he wants Ralph to come and help him stop the Yeti. He also asks Ralph why he's in Nanda Parbat, and it's because Ralph wants to meet with Ramakrishna, who apparently has the answers to life and death and will answer anyone's questions. So he wants to meet Ramakrishna and ask it a question about Sue. And so he goes and he helps Yao Fei. They find Yu Hua, and they fight him, and Ralph is able to dodge a punch from Yu Hua, and then he puts the necklace around his neck, and that transforms him back into his human form. And that's when a monk appears behind Ralph and is like, Ralph Dibney, Ramakrishna will see you now. And so Ralph gets taken to Ramakrishna's dwelling, little room where they worship her. And she appears to him in the form of a painting and explains to him that there is no death. Death is an illusion of being in time, a trick of the light. And Ralph's like, so why does it hurt so much? Her head on my chest in the morning with my arm going numb underneath her, the way she stacked the fridge, the way she would laugh when I made some stupid joke. Why does it all hurt so much? And Ramakrishna says, no love is wasted. No love is lost in time. Then where is she? Where's the essence you all talk about? Where's the soul? This thing in us that lives on and never dies? Why can't I talk to her? You wish to be with her again? Come closer. I will show you how. And she apparently says to something to, or shows Ralph Dibney something that he doesn't say, but he says that he's, she said something to him, and he has no other reason to be in Nanda Parbat, so he wishes Yao Fei the best, and heads off on his journey. He turns to him and says, be careful what you wish for. Alright, issue 33, it's Christmas time. Ralph Dibney visits the Flash Museum in order to find something. I can't exactly see what it is. It looks like it might be a tape recorder. I guess we'll find out what it is later. Batwoman and Nightwing meet up on a building in Gotham City where Nightwing gives her a gift, and it turns out that it's a Batarang. But she's like, I already have my own. And Nightwing's like, that's not just any Batarang. That's a real Batarang. He's like, and you can throw it and it'll come right back to you. And then he turns to her and he's like, but it's also just another Batarang. Like, there's actually nothing super special about it, except for the meaning of, giving it to you as a gift. One of Lex Luthor's scientists comes to him and tells him that this guy called Lewis, who was gone under the Everyman Project, is on life support because he has rejected the Everyman thing. And so Lex Luthor is like, tell his parents to come and make sure they're in the publicity departments, because Luthor cares more about his public image than he does about actually saving this kid. He wants to make sure that he comes out looking like the best person, And then he goes and visits his Infinity Inc. team, where he gives them their Christmas presents. He straight out gives one of them a sports car and then tells them that he's rented out a drag line for them to use the car on. So they rush off and they do that. And that's when Luthor starts looking at the file that was given to him by this scientist and says that he needs to get a better research team. And that's when the scientist comes in and says, hey, Mr. Luthor, it seems like Lewis is actually pulling through and he's adapting to the Everyman Project. It's a Christmas miracle. And then Luthor's like, all right, well, the upside to that is that now we have a test subject when it comes to adaptation. So, can you harvest his organs and suck out his spinal fluid, drain his spinal fluid, and, tell his parents that we're so sorry that he passed away, make sure they're compensated for their tragic loss. And he's like, obituary? It's like, tonight. Oh, and Dennis? Merry Christmas. And he and Mercy cheers their glasses while the scientist just has to go off and kill this poor kid just because it benefits Lex Luthor. Meanwhile, Renee Montoya is dealing with the fact that Charlie is dying from cancer, and her Christmas is a little bit messed up because, Charlie starts hallucinating. He's really sickly and frail now. He starts hallucinating, thinking that Renee is his family members, and so she has to take him back to bed. He's murmuring things like, I'm so sorry about Jackie. I loved her like she was ours, Myra. I loved her like I loved you. It's like, I couldn't say it. You could say it, but I never said it. I love you. And Renee replies, I love you too. And then starts weeping. And she's comforted by Kate Kane. And then the two of them kiss. And then they realize that it stopped snowing. And so they sit together on the couch and they're like, ooh, Merry Christmas, Renee. It's a very lovely moment. Also, Kate, I think, is... Kate's Jewish as well, so they got a little Hanukkah candle set up as well. Sorry, I don't know the name of it, if it has a specific name. And then it shows us shots of everyone in the DC Universe celebrating Christmas together. And then Black Adam and Isis and Osiris have a conversation about the fact that Black Adam's actions have affected Osiris being able to make friends and join the Teen Titans. So they want Black Adam to prove to everyone that they can trust him. And so what he does is he sets up a show in the middle of the city. He arrives there with Isis and Osiris. And what they do is they do something that Black Adam has never done before. They show everybody their human forms. They say Shazam or the other trigger words that cause them to lose their powers. And for the first time ever, Black Adam shows people his human form. Because ever since he became Black Adam, he's stayed Black Adam. So when he transforms back, he's still wearing his Egyptian stuff. Because he's never changed his clothes because he's always been Black Adam. And this is his way of proving who he is. Because he turns to everyone, he's like, from the outside we may look like monsters, but without our powers, we are human like you. And so Adam Smasher is like, see, Waller? He never shows people his human form. He has to be a good guy. And Amanda Waller is like, he's just doing this, Do you really believe a wife, a kid, and a talking reptile has turned this magical dictator into a peace-loving preacher? You were there when he liberated Kahndaq. And back then, Black Adam would never let anyone see him in his human form. So you expect the boys in Washington to breathe a sigh of relief because he's standing on stage in his underwear? He's the most powerful international terrorist in the world. He has to be brought in. And now we know Black Adam has a weakness. His entire family does. Everyone has a weakness, Vertigo. That's why all of you ended up in Belle Reve. But we signed the papers. We joined your little team. Do this errand and our life sentences vanish like lightning. I heard you were smarter than your father. I still don't see it. You will, gorgeous. And it's revealed that Owen Mercer, the son of Digger Harkness and the new Captain Boomerang, is going to be he's a member of the new Suicide Squad that is tasked with helping Atom Smasher take down Black Adam. And this team consists of Captain Boomerang, Penance, Count Vertigo, Plastique, and some guy whose name I don't know, who just looks like a generic villain. Oops, sorry. I called one of them Penance. His name isn't Penance, it's Persuader. I was thinking of the Marvel character for some reason. And apparently that one villain whose name I don't know is supposed to be the Electrocutioner. Nothing about him would give you the impression that it's the Electrocutioner until Captain Boomerang calls him that, because there's no electrical design in his costume or anything. So issue 34, the Suicide Squad are keeping their eyes on Black Adam, Isis, and Osiris, and immediately start attacking them. Atom Smasher grabs Black Adam and is like, hey, we gotta talk. You need to hand yourself into the government because of all the bad things that you did. And Black Adam's like, there's no way I'm gonna give myself over to hypocrites and end up like you. And Atom Smasher's like, well, I don't want to hurt you. And Black Adam's like, well, if you don't want to hurt me, then you better not fight me, because I will fight back. So the Suicide Squad end up getting the upper hand on Isis, specifically the Persuader. He attacks her alongside Vertigo. Vertigo causes her to lose her balance, and so Persuader is able to start slashing at her. He gets his axe and stabs it into her arm, and he stabs it into her face, and Osiris watches from a distance and is like, Adriana! It's like, we were supposed to keep you alive, you know, but screw it. This is too much fun. And he goes to swing the axe at her, and Osiris is like, leave my sister alone! And he just smashes straight through Persuader. Guts going everywhere. Just goes, like, through him, through his torso. Blood and guts everywhere, and he's just like Vertigo just, like, looks and is just like, oh, crap. And he's like, oh, you should have left my sister alone. I want to do good. I want to do good. And that's when Isis comes up to him and is like, I'm on. I'm sorry. And Isis hugs him on while it's raining, and Black Adam's just like, let's go home before anyone else gets hurt. And so they head off. And so Amanda Waller says that she wasn't even expecting the Suicide Squad to be able to beat them. She got what she wanted, which was pushing Black Adam, and then having them push back has allowed her to prove to the public that Black Adam and Isis and Osiris are dangerous. It also turns out that Amanda Waller is just a straight up boomer, because she starts complaining about superpowered teenagers. She's like, oh, these superpowered teenagers are the same. Like, that's exactly what she says. So Natasha and Infinity Inc. are heading to the shops to buy some stuff. Meanwhile, John Henry Irons' little group of people that are working against Lex Luthor managed to rig the situation. So Natasha goes to use a credit card alongside Mercy, and it gets rejected, and it's because Barbara is hacked into the systems to reject the card, and that allows a policeman, or two policemen, which are John and Dinah in disguise. They take Natasha aside so that John can speak to her face to face. She's like, why did you go through all this just to talk to me? And John's like, because I want to talk to you alone without any of Luthor's people listening in. Look at me. Do I look like I have powers anymore? And Natasha's like, no. It's like, because they just stopped working. Think back to your friend Eliza when she fought Blockbuster. How was he able to grab somebody who had super speed? How was he able to break the neck of a speedster like that? How was he fast enough? And he's just like, look, just think about that, and you'll have your answers, Natasha. Draw your own conclusions. And then he leaves. Meanwhile, Clark Kent is being tortured by a bunch of guys who were hired by Lex Luthor, but he doesn't know that. And they want to know the identity of Sueprnova because Kent is doing, interviews with him and stuff. And they use this truth serum that they've made. It has like the same consistencies of the lasso of truth. And so they use that on him, and he says that he has no idea who Sueprnova is, but that he's definitely not Superman because Lex Luthor wants to know who Sueprnova is. And obviously Clark Kent knows who Superman is, so he's able to be like, it's not Superman. And so Clark gets sent back home, drugged, and Lex Luthor tells his men to tell him that he was abducted by the Yakuza and not him. Charlie is in his hospital bed dying, and that's when Renee shows up to sit beside him and watches the new year rolls in. And that's when the countdown to the new year starts, and as the countdown happens, Lex Luthor pulls a device out of his suit as all of his everymen fly above him saying Happy New Year. And as they all come together in Central Square, all of these everymen, Lex Luthor is like talking to Sueprnova. He says, whoever you are, Sueprnova, this city isn't yours. It's mine, and you're winning too many hearts. It's time you failed in the face of a real challenge. And then he presses the device as it hits, as the countdown to New Year hits 0. Issue 35, every single everyman that is flying above the city during New Year's Eve loses their powers all at the same time, and they begin dropping like flies, crashing into the ground below, a lot of them dying. There's one guy below who says that he is Leviathan and that he can stop this woman from falling, he can save her. But then he's like, why aren't my powers working? And the woman falls on top of him and kills him, as his wife cries out for him and is like, George! All these people just are falling and dying. Some are trying to use their powers, and they're like, oh, my powers aren't working. Like, run, get to safety. Meanwhile, Lex is pretending like he doesn't know what's going on. He's like, oh, all these people are falling from the sky. Oh, this is awful. This is terrible. Hold on. And he sees that a guy's about to fall on top of him, and so he quickly moves out of the way. Something seems to have negated their powers right at the stroke of midnight. No, I can't imagine how that could have happened. Meanwhile, Sueprnova is hearing about everything that's going on, and he arrives where Luthor is. He's like, Luthor, I know, I'm shocked, appalled. Gosh, if only Metropolis had a Superman who could stop this chaos. Oh well. And so Sueprnova flies off to go and help people however he can. And Infinity Inc. is also going around trying to help people as well. Sueprnova uses his ability to get all the innocent people out of the city all at once. Like, he just makes them disappear, and then they reappear outside of the city. And Infinity Inc. starts going through all the rubble, because their powers aren't gone. They're the only characters who Lex Luthor didn't take the powers from, for obvious reasons. So they're going through all the rubble, saving all these different people, and helping them. And Natasha realizes that maybe her uncle was right, because he was warning her about something like this happening, and then it did. Like, that can't be a coincidence, that, like, people's powers have just suddenly stopped working. And so they're taking all these people to hospital and stuff, because there's a lot of people in critical condition. Luckily, not everybody died, but a lot of people did, and, a lot of people got gravely injured by it, including Plastic Man's son. He was one of the guys that got injured, because he was trying to save people, and apparently he stretched himself so thin that he almost snapped. He's not an everyman. Like, he had powers before Lex Luthor. He was just there at the time trying to help people. So Lex goes to Infinity Inc. and he tells him that he basically lies to them. He pretends that he had nothing to do with it, and he says to them that he's just been testing them to see that their powers are still all in check, and it turns out they're all good. So he's going to set up some meetings and stuff, like some interviews and things, because the Luthor brand has been tarnished by this event, and he's like, but I'm counting on you to help fix our reputation by going out to the public and, showing them just how great Infinity Inc. is. Lex also says that Hannibal, also known as the Everyman, because they're all called Everymen, but then there's one character called Everyman, and he can camouflage as anybody. He's the guy that pretended to be Natasha's boyfriend Jake in an earlier issue. Lex says that they had to do testing on him in a different room, which is a little bit suspicious, and then apparently his tests went through as well. Because Jake arrives in Natasha's room and says like, "Oh, Hannibal's test went through, so I just came to tell you that." And Natasha's like, "Look, we need to do something about Luthor. I don't trust him because my uncle warned me about him. He warned me that something bad was going to happen, and then it did. I think what we need to do is we need to investigate Luthor and see if he's really worth trusting. And I need you to help me do that. I need your help, Jake. We have to find proof. We have to get it to my uncle. You gotta help me, Jake. There's nobody else here I can trust." He's like, "Of course I'll help you. I love you, Natasha. I won't let anything happen to you." And he hugs her, and I'm pretty sure that, although it isn't confirmed, there's a good chance that this is not Jake, and that this is Hannibal in disguise again. Especially because right behind him is a picture of Jake, Natasha, and Hannibal together. So I don't think this is Jake. I think this is Hannibal. And maybe Lex is planning on using Hannibal as a way to, know what Natasha is up to, Meanwhile, Adam Strange, Starfire, and Animal Man are preparing to face the Lady Styx. But Lobo decides that they shouldn't do that. And that instead of giving the Emerald Eye back to the Emerald Head so that it can help them fight the Lady Styx, he needs to take the Emerald Eye back to this giant fish god thing that he promised the eye to. But then Adam Strange puts two and two together and realizes Lobo is a bounty hunter. And that maybe when he killed the pursuer, that was all planned out from the very beginning. And that Lobo is also hunting them for the bounties on their heads, and that he's been hiding it from them the entire time. And Lobo reveals to them that Adam Strange is right, and that he was never actually gonna help them, and that he plans on taking them directly to Lady Styx so that he can hand them over to her and get the bounty. Because of course he betrays them. Because he's Lobo. He's a bounty hunter. He's always gonna put money first. Just kidding. In issue 36, it turns out that Lobo isn't actually turning them into the Lady Styx. I mean, he is, but, it's to get a jump on her, to get them past her security so that they can actually stop her. But it turns out that she wasn't even planning on giving anyone any bounty. There was no bounty. The reward was death. So she just sicks all of her, men on them. And so, Animal Man, Starfire, and Adam Strange have to fight back, and they're like, "Lobo, please help us." And Lobo's like, "Hey, I did what you asked. I got you in here, but I ain't helping you." And so Lady Styx starts calling him, a little bitch and, a coward for not wanting to fight her men. And that pushes Lobo to the point, because nobody calls him a bitch. And so he's like, "Forgive me!" And he gives in to his... Because right now he's, going by a no-kill code. But he gives into his no-kill code and starts killing and slaughtering all of Lady Styx's men. And Animal Man starts saying, because Lady Styx, a lot of her men are saying, "Believe in her, believe in her." He's like, "Over here. Don't look towards Earth, look at me. You want to know what I believe in? This is what I believe in." And so Buddy brings out a photo of his family and runs straight at Lady Styx and fights her for a bit. And then Lobo starts fighting her as well. And then the Emerald Head crashes straight into the building and smashes straight into Lady Styx and starts traveling through space with, her on the front of it. And Lobo explains that the reason why he broke into the Lady Styx's place at a very specific point in time, which is when the Sun Eaters are moving. And so on the front of the Emerald Head, Lady Styx gets sent flying straight into a Sun Eater, and her and the Emerald Head are eaten by the Sun Eater, killing them both. And then things are all happy for a moment until they realize that Buddy Baker, Animal Man, has been shot by a necrotoxin. And so he turns to Starfire and he's like, "They know how much I love them. You won't even have to tell them, Corey. Look, can you see? They're cheering us on. I told you. Told you the universe likes me. Corey, promise you won't let me come back as a zombie." And then he dies. That's right, Animal Man dies. And we get to see his family, like his wife just knows that he's dead, and she starts tearing up. And then his kids come out and they're like, Mum? Meanwhile, Charlie is also dying from cancer still, and Renee is getting more and more desperate to save him. Nanda Parbat have been sending flowers to her in hopes that they will help him, but the flowers don't help outside of Nanda Parbat, they just turn into dust. And so Renee decides that she's going to take Charlie to Nanda Parbat, despite how dangerous it is, because she just doesn't want to let him die. And Kate tries to convince her not to do it, but Renee's like, if there's a chance to save him by going back to Nanda Parbat, then I'm going to try and do it. Meanwhile, Osiris is now enemy number 1 for killing Persuader, and he's like doesn't even want to talk to Sobek, and he's like, yeah, they hate us, Sobek. No matter what we ever do, the entire world will always hate us. He's like, I don't hate you. Thank you, Sobek. Because even the Teen Titans have thrown him out. They're like, if you show up, we're unfortunately going to have to arrest you for killing Persuader. Meanwhile, Sueprnova has met with Rip Hunter, which is the guy that Skeets has been looking for this entire time. And Rip Hunter is trying to build a chronosphere, which is what he uses to travel through time. And Sueprnova has been bringing him all sorts of technology to help him build it, because apparently something is coming and they need to build the chronosphere in order to stop whoever's coming. And it might be Skeets that he's afraid of. He doesn't want Skeets to find him. Sueprnova tries to keep Rip Hunter calm by telling him that Skeets will never find them because they're in the last place he'd think to look, if he even know it exists. And it turns out that they are inside the bottled city of Kandor, which is the city from Krypton that got shrunk down and put in a bottle. But it turns out that Skeets might know that they're in the bottled city of Kandor, because the final panel has Skeets arriving in the Fortress of Solitude, looking directly at it. So that's a bit ironic. Also, I'm starting to think that my theory about Sueprnova being Booster Gold might be right. Right, so issue 37, Skeets is now attacking the bottled city of Kandor, which is where Rip Hunter and Sueprnova are currently hiding. Rip Hunter tells Sueprnova that he needs to take the suit off so that Rip can continue to configure it to add more powers to it. And that's when it's revealed that the person who is Sueprnova is Booster Gold. That's right, it was Booster Gold this entire time. And that's when Booster explains everything to Skeets. He talks about how he knows that this is not the Skeets that he knows. Like, this is not the same Skeets that he's spent so much time with. He doesn't elaborate on that, but I'm sure that this series will elaborate on what happened to Skeets. What we know is that everything in regards to Booster Gold, this entire story, was completely fabricated by him. Like, it was all planned. The whole Sueprnova thing, it was all planned. So, when Booster Gold went into Rip Hunter's bunker, he met Rip Hunter while he was in there. But he lied to Skeets about that. That he did, like, he said he didn't, there was nothing there. No, Rip Hunter showed up and told Booster everything and came up with a plan to stop Skeets. And so they created the Superman, like the Sueprnova Alliance for Booster, and fabricated this whole rivalry between them that wasn't even real, and then planned out his fake death so that Booster could then become Sueprnova and try to stop Skeets behind the scenes and work with Rip Hunter in order to find a way to take down Skeets without Skeets even realizing who he is. And that's why, so when Sueprnova was in the Batcave, he looked at the Kryptonian glove, the Kryptonian gauntlet that Lex Luthor owned. The reason why he looked at it, Booster reveals it's because he was going around taking technology and then using it to add more powers to the suit. So that's why Sueprnova had so much power. It wasn't because he had superpowers. It's because they were using technology like the kryptonite glove to power him up. But the main thing that they used to give Sueprnova powers was the Phantom Zone projector, which is what Superman uses to send people to the Phantom Zone. So Rip Hunter brings it out, which they've been working on it this entire time, getting it working again. They activate it, and they try to suck Skeets into the Phantom Zone. But instead of sucking him in, Skeets eats the Phantom Zone. Like, he completely absorbs it. They're just like, oh, dear God. He's eating the Phantom Zone. And so Rip is like, alright, it bought us time to retreat. Are you ready? He's like, ready? For what? 52, 51, and then Rip Hunter and Booster Gold teleport away, and Skeets is like, oh, no. You don't get away that easily. Meanwhile, Oliver Queen and Dinah Lance meet up where they talk about, how Jordan's been away for a while, and it's because he's apparently helping Star City get back on its feet. Oliver Queen has become the new mayor of Star City, and he asks Dinah for help in looking for Ralph Dibney, because that's what he's currently trying to do. And Dinah is like, well, we don't know where he is, so I can't help you there, unfortunately. And then we cut to Lobo, Starfire, and Adam Strange all having Animal Man's funeral. Lobo gives some words, and unfortunately, they can't touch him because he's... Well, they say they can't touch him because he's, at risk of, getting the same necrotoxin that he died from. Being infected. But Starfire kisses him in a panel before Adam Strange says, yeah, we can't touch him. So, she kisses him on the forehead. Maybe that'll be brought up later. But the point is, they leave because there's no reason for them to be here anymore. And then it turns out Animal Man isn't actually dead. He wakes up, and the moment he wakes up, he comes face to face with two yellow-skinned aliens that look a lot like Impossible Man from Marvel. So, issue 38, Renee Montoya heads to Nanda Parbat with Charlie because she's trying to save his life because he's dying from cancer. Meanwhile, all of the mad scientists that are on Oolong Island are continuing their work for Shang-Tzu. Will has been taken off of his medication and is being forced to build something called plutonium, which turns out to be a new Metal Man that he's tried to build in the past, but it's always ended really badly. At the same time, the mad scientists are also building the 4 horsemen for the Shang-Tzu, for Shang-Tzu, and we get to see them for the first time in this issue. He unveils the 4 horsemen, and they look pretty damn horrific. Apparently, they are representing actual gods of Apocalypse. And for some reason, that one character with blonde hair, whose name has never been revealed, but that one mad scientist with blonde hair that works for Shang-Tzu, she gets a nosebleed, and I don't know why. It's really weird. It's just in one panel, she's got nosebleed for some reason. Why? Renee Montoya continues her way through Nanda Parbat with Charlie, and he's just hallucinating more and more, and she goes to a nearby village where she tries to find out which way to go, and they give her kind of a direction in order to head to find it, and so she heads through the snow, and it doesn't go very well. They get stuck in a snowstorm, and it's pretty horrendous. It gets to the point where Renee is literally like, I think we're both gonna die. Meanwhile, John is still trying to stop Lex Luthor and his Everyman Project, because he's teamed up with Beast Boy and some other characters in order to help stop that. And that's when his niece Natasha sends a little robotic bug to go and talk to him, and says that she believes everything he said about Lex now, and that apparently Lex has a secret room, and she's used the bug to see that he goes into a secret room, and so she's going to try and find her way into that room and see what Lex Luthor is hiding. And she says goodbye to her dad, because he's like, what if he catches you? She's like, he won't. Goodbye, Dad. Or goodbye, Uncle. Sorry. I keep saying that she's his daughter. She's his niece. And he's her uncle. Renee is desperate to save Charlie's life, and now that they're stuck in a storm, she's doing everything that she can to do that. So she puts, like, his mask on to try and protect his face, but he ends up falling off of the little, like, because she's got him on a sled, like, tied to a sled, and she's pulling him through the snow, and he falls off of it and starts coughing up blood. So she has to quickly, like roll him over, and this is the first time Charlie actually starts to make sense. He's like, get this thing off my face. I don't have to breathe as it is. What the hell are you doing, Renee? Trying to get us to Nanda Parbat. Trying to save you, Charlie. But you can't. I told you. Some things you have to accept. I can't. I need you. I don't know who I am without you. It's a trick question, Renee. Not who you are. Not who you are, but who you're going to become. Time to change. Like a butterfly. And then Charlie dies. And not only does he die, but he dies right outside Nanda Parbat. It turns out they were right outside it, and he dies right there. It's pretty sad. There's like a shot of Nanda Parbat right behind Renee as she's like slumped on Charlie's body, and somebody from Nanda Parbat sees her and comes walking towards her. And that's the very last shot of the comic. Man, it's really sad. Like, throughout this entire series, we've gotten to see Renee and Charlie's relationship develop, and yeah, it's really sad when he dies. Alright, issue 39 begins with Dennis, a scientist of Lex Luthor, entering the secret lab, while Natasha and Jake follow him into the lab. But when they enter it, Dennis turns at them and is like, oh no, Jesus, what are you? And then the whole lab just explodes. And Dennis dies in the fire. Natasha and Jake quickly jump onto the ceiling. Like, they put out the fire and stuff, and then they quickly jump onto the ceiling because they hear the some of Lex Luthor's people come in to check the lab. And so they hide from them. And Mercy enters and realizes that Dennis blew up the lab himself, and that he is one stupid son of a bitch for what he did. Meanwhile, Ralph Dibney and the Helmet of Fate head to Atlantis, where they find Aquaman, except he's not called Aquaman at the moment. Like, he's not going by that title. He's grown his hair out really long, and he has a beard now because he's been away for almost a year. And they're there to ask him where the shackles of Arian are, so that they can break a link off of the shackles. Arian is like a giant blue underwater beast. So they go over there, and they take what they do is, they take the link, and then in order to stop the beast from breaking out, the Helmet of Fate takes Ralph's ring and grows it big enough so that they can use it as a link. So they replace it with his ring. Shang Tzu sends the Four Horsemen through a boom tube somewhere. We don't know yet, but that's what he does. He sends them through a boom tube. And then it's revealed that Will Magnus has been stealing things from around the office that contain lead and mercury and stuff. And Tio Moro was like, they know what you're doing. Like, they're gonna figure, like, you gotta be a little bit more secret with what you're doing, Will, because they're gonna figure out that you're trying to build the Metal Man. And Will's like, oh, you think that's what I'm doing? I'm not doing that at all. Like, you have no proof of that. And it turns out that is exactly what he's doing. He's trying to build the Metal Man again. And so far he's successfully built a very tiny version of Mercury. And Will turns to him and is like, Mercury, you gotta hide better, otherwise they're gonna see you. You stop just walking around out in the open. Will also tells Tio Morrow that Red Tornado was found in Australia. And so Tio goes to look further into that because he created Red Tornado and he wants to know his whereabouts. Meanwhile, Osiris is struggling with the fact that he killed Persuader. Black Adam wants to talk to him, but Sobek says it's probably not a good idea because Osiris believes that it's Black Adam's fault that he ended up killing because he thinks that he's cursed. But that by getting Black Adam's power, that's cursed him and is the reason why he ended up killing. And Black Adam's like, there's no way that could be the case. And then all of a sudden, clouds start crackling over the skies, rain starts pouring down, and the flowers that they've all planted start dying. And that causes Isis to start freaking out. Lex Luthor fixes the lab and decides to begin treatment on an unknown subject. Natasha hears of this and is like, what is he talking about? What is he talking about? Treatment. And Jake is like, hey, Natasha, I found something. I gotta show you this. And he brings Natasha into another room, and Natasha finds the body of Jake with his arm and legs missing, or like 1 foot and a leg missing. It's pretty messed up, because it turns out I was right, and the Jake that she's been talking to this entire time isn't Jake. It's actually Hannibal Bates, aka Everyman, the guy that has to eat a little thing of something to become them. Yeah, he's been eating Jake. Presumably while Jake is still alive. Like, they haven't even confirmed that Jake is dead. It seems like he might be in a coma and that, like, he's just been eating him. Either that or he's dead. I don't know. His body does look like it's very pale, but you can't tell if it's the lighting or not. Either way, Hannibal has been eating Jake, which is probably the most messed up thing we've seen in this series, and it might be the most messed up thing I've ever seen in a comic book ever. But yeah, he's been pretending to be Jake this entire time, and so Natasha obviously gets really mad and tries to kill Hannibal, but then Lex Luthor breaks up their fight by jumping in front of, or like moving in front of one of Natasha's attacks. She like shoots fire at him, like at Hannibal, because apparently she can do that. And yeah, Lex Luthor gets in the way and it doesn't do anything to him because Lex Luthor now has powers. And he fights back against Natasha. He throws her at a wall. He just beats the crap out of her. He's like, you're as much as an animal as every man. Wrong. And he grabs her by the shirt. He's like, I'm Superman. And the blast that actually ripped apart, like that hit him in the chest, it ripped apart his shirt and gave him kind of like the same shape as Superman's crest. Alright, issue 40. Steel alongside a couple of the Teen Titans, Beast Boy, Raven, Aquagirl, and Plastic Man's son, whose hero name is Offspring, attack LexCorp because Lex Luthor has told John that he needs to come and see Natasha if he wants to save her, and Natasha is like, don't come, Uncle John. Like, this is a trap. And so John breaks his way through, and the Titans decide to take care of Infinity Inc. while John meets Lex face to face. They tell him that there's nobody on the floors above him, so John is able to just smash his way up to Lex. He is wearing his steel armor, by the way. Mercy is like, come on, Dr. Ryans, you can do better than that, like when he tries to smash her with his hammer, but then he just elbows her in the face, knocking her out immediately, like you were saying. Natasha's like, oh, Uncle John! She comes over and hugs him, but it turns out this isn't Natasha, it's actually Hannibal in disguise. And so he shapeshifts into a giant crab and clasps his claw around Steel, but Steel is pretty damn strong and just breaks his way out. Because it seems like John isn't just a normal guy anymore. It seems like he's, like, altered his body to be, like, more robotic off-panel. And so, yeah, he has, like, super strength and stuff from adding, like, cybernetics to his body. So he breaks Hannibal's hand by breaking out of the giant claws, so that forces Hannibal to turn back into a regular dude. And then Hannibal, like, John starts asking him where Lex is, and Hannibal's, like, backing up, and he backs up right to the hole where that John broke through, and then he falls straight through the hole to his death. And so every man dies. And then John smashes his hammer down and is like, Luthor, Your superpowered thugs are crawling home to mama. You're all alone. Let her go or I'll pound you and your hand-tailored suit into the sidewalk. And Lex just starts, like, mocking him like he usually does. He's like, I have superpowers. There's nothing you can do against me. And not just any superpowers. I have Superman superpowers. And he just straight up uses heat vision on John. But that doesn't kill him because John has powers. And so he attacks Lex with his hammer. And Lex just grabs his hammer and shoves it through John's side, stabbing him in the gut. And then he punches John in the face, smacks him aside, and he's just like beating the crap out of him while mocking him. And Lex then turns to Natasha and is like, I'm gonna take over the world with my powers. You know, I was thinking of calling the planet Lexor. You know, and John just keeps getting back up, and Lex is like, what are you doing, you idiot? Like, your internals are bleeding. You know, you got fecal matter in your system. Like, you can't win. It's like, you're empty, Luthor. You could fill that hole in your soul with all the powers in the world. Natasha, we're going home. And Lex is like, in an ambulance! And he smashes his desk. Natasha's like, stop this! And Lex is like, I'll stop if you know, clear up this entire situation and say that I'm not the bad guy to the public. And John's just like, nah, she wasn't raised to take orders from anybody, least of all you. And Lex is like, you call me insane? Look at him, lie down and die, man. And he just plunges himself right at John. The two continue fighting each other. And Natasha grabs John's hammer and says that his hammer is an atomic power source. And Lex is like, what did she just say? And he has John by the head, and John, like, detaches his own hand, because he has a robot hand, and the hand attaches itself to Lex Luthor, and then just blows up. And Lex is like, do you really think a robotic hand can hurt me? And Natasha's like, you're right about how we need to rely on ourselves and all that stuff, but sometimes a little technology goes a long way. And she opens up John's hammer, and it turns out that they've configured the hammer so that it can turn off powers, just like Lex Luthor can. So she presses the hammer and it turns off Lex's powers. And he's like, what did you do to me? And he's like, the same thing you did to all those kids you killed on New Year's. But maybe you should thank us. The everyman treatment is toxic. It was eating you up on the inside. In 6 months, you'd be dead. So I just saved your life, Luthor. Saving lives is what I do. Get away from me. The exo gene will recover in seconds. I'll tear you apart. You don't have seconds. Time for a fair fight. And John just picks him up by the neck and then beats his ass off panel. They just hear his screams from below. They're like, oh, blood curdling cries of pain. What's happening up there? Did he make it? I mean, it's all gone quiet. No, look. And then, like, Beast Boy and everyone looks up as they see the Lex Corp's sign fall down. They're like, up in the sky. And we get a shot of John and Natasha together with Lex beaten on the ground, knocked out. And so they've won. Lex Luthor has been defeated. Meanwhile, in Kahndaq, Osiris blames himself for all the terrible things that are currently happening in Kahndaq, with all the vegetation dying and all these storms happening. And he asks Sobek to help take him to the Rock of Eternity, because he needs to find a new family, and he wants to get rid of his Black Adam powers and get Captain Marvel powers instead, because he believes that the Black Adam powers have cursed him. Alright, issue 41 begins with Adam Strange and Starfire in space fighting a bounty hunter known as Molech. Molech ends up suicide bombing his own, like, the ship that they're on, and it blows up, but Adam Strange manages to grab Starfire and get her to safety, and then they find a ship off panel at some point. Either they were on his ship and it blew up and they went back to their own ship, or they found a new ship. They don't really explain. But yeah, they find a ship to fly in. Renee is still in Nanda Parbat, and she's giving the illusion that she's continuing in Charlie's footsteps. She's like learning martial arts and things and living that kind of lifestyle. But Richard Dragon calls her out and is like, hey, like, you're faking this whole thing. You're doing a fake it till you make it routine, and that's not gonna work. Like, if you want to continue in Charlie's footsteps, you're gonna have to do the difficult thing and look at yourself, figure yourself out so you can figure out who you'll become. And Renee's just like, I can't, and runs away. Meanwhile, Ralph Dibney goes to the Haven Correctional Facility, where he talks to one of the guys about Tio Morrow's disappearance, and he goes and visits this doctor called Dr. Milo, who is in a wheelchair, and he accuses Milo of pretending to be, pretending to be disabled, and he pulls the wheel off of Milo's wheelchair, and Milo's like, please don't, because he reveals that the wheel is in fact the silver wheel of Nyolith, and he scratches off the wheel to reveal it, and that he needs it. And then it turns out Dr. Milo, yes, the wheel was the silver wheel of Nyolith, but at the same time, Dr. Milo is actually a disabled guy and needs the wheel, needs the wheelchair. And Ralph realizes what he's done and the kind of person he's becoming. It's like, oh god, I have to go. Like hell, guards! It's time, isn't it? And the Helmet of Fate is like, yes, Ralph. The final hour is at last upon us. And they teleport out of the room. Renee goes and talks to another character in Nanda Parbat, whose name isn't mentioned, but apparently she's somebody that she's befriended there. And this person explains to her that she needs to figure out who she is. And because she's like, you're looking for a reason and you're looking for it without. But the only reason you will find will be the reason you bring to the experience. And that can only come from looking within. And Renee's like, it's not that I don't want to look. I'm dying to look. But I'm afraid of what I'll see there. Then that is all the more reason to do it. It's a simple question. And so Renee heads back to the cave that Richard was training in. And she says to herself, her friend, the voice of her friend rings through her head as she's in this cave. And it says, it's a simple question which will have greater rule over you, your fear, or your curiosity. And Renee has a candle, and it blows out, and there's a question mark. So it's kind of her stepping into that role and continuing Charlie's legacy as the question. Meanwhile, Adam Strange and Starfire are in the middle of space, where Adam just begins having, spilling out all of his feelings about the current situation and the fact that, he almost lost his family and he was able to make his way back to them, but now he's lost them again. And, they were told that there would be Green Lanterns that they can find, and they haven't found any yet. They're still in the middle of space, trying to figure out where to go. And then all of a sudden, a planet just appears in front of them out of nowhere, and they crash into it, and then a Green Lantern shows up and is like, we got him. Strange. If Molech's transport hadn't suicided when it did, we'd have missed the radiation flare that brought us here. And it's revealed that the planet that they crashed into is Mogo, who is the largest Green Lantern in existence. The entire planet is a Green Lantern. And he might be my favorite Green Lantern of all time. He acts as the therapist for Green Lanterns. So what Mogo does is Green Lanterns go to his planet and he creates manifestations and things to help them deal with their troubling times, dark memories and stuff. He'll create manifestations of family members and that so that he can help Green Lanterns move on from past trauma and experiences. It's a really great role for him. And that's why he's one of my favorite Green Lanterns, because some of the best moments in the Green Lantern Corps series specifically come from when the Green Lanterns visit Mogo and relive some of their experiences and memories to get over trauma. There's an amazing scene of Kilowog where he goes to Mogo and he has dinner with his dead family. Mogo creates manifestations of them that he can have dinner with. It's incredible. It's such a heartbreaking moment, but at the same time, it's incredibly wholesome. So issue 42 begins with Renee in the cave. She looks at her reflection of the cave and sees herself without a face. So that is her sign that she should become the next question. Meanwhile, Ralph Dibney visits the Tower of Fate, where the Helmet of Fate says that it's time for him to finally utter the words of the incantation to bring back his wife. What he's trying to do is open up the doors to the afterlife itself, and that it will cause a lot of pain for him, but he will be able to finally reunite with his wife. So he creates a whole setup and then puts on the Helmet of Fate, and then he pulls out a gun and he puts it to his head. It's the gun that he took from the Flash Museum, and then he pulls the trigger, but instead of shooting out a regular bullet, it shoots out a magic bullet, which shoots the Helmet of Fate off of his head, sending it flying into a nearby wall. The Helmet of Fate, then a weird spirit comes out of the Helmet of Fate, and the Helmet of Fate turns back into a ring. Sue Dibney's ring. Or no, not Sue Dibney's ring. Ralph's ring. Because remember when his ring got stolen from him? Well, it turns out the one who stole it was actually Felix Faust. Because Felix Faust was the Helmet of Fate the entire time. That's right, the Helmet of Fate was never here. It was Felix Faust pretending to be it the entire time. He had planned this from the very beginning. Everything that Ralph had seen up until this point was all concocted by Felix's magic. Like when he saw Sue Dibney as that voodoo doll that grabbed him by the leg, turns out that was just an illusion created by Felix to keep him hanging on to this whole journey and keep Ralph doing this. Ralph ended up figuring this all out because he's a detective, obviously. He knew that the ring was used as a conduit to allow Felix to disguise himself as the Helmet of Fate. Felix killed Timothy Trench and made it look like Timothy had died from the Helmet of Fate. To make Ralph believe that it was real even more. This entire time, Ralph has been drinking what looks like alcohol out of a bottle. And so Felix goes to attack him, but then Ralph stretches and punches him in the face and reveals that he wasn't drinking alcohol. He was drinking Gingol, which is what gives him his stretching abilities. He then has Felix at gunpoint with his magic gun that can kill magic people. And he basically forces a confession out of Felix Faust, where it turns out that everything Felix had said about him being, sent to hell for his soul to be tortured by Neron for eternity was true. But he made a deal with Neron, where if Neron set him free, he would get the soul of somebody else, and that would be Ralph Dibney. And so Neron appears to take Ralph's soul, right? But Ralph has also been working with Neron in order to trick Felix. And Neron is like, "You amuse me, Dibney. Let me guess, you want to make a trade?" And he's like, "I thought about it. Thought about trading you Faust in return for my wife. But you wouldn't do that, would you?" He's like, "I won't bring her back, Dibney. Not in exchange for payment as meager as this. No, I didn't think you would, so I changed the wish." "Enough, you're wasting my time, Dibney. Come, Faust, we're leaving." He's like, "No, you're not. I told you, Faust is mine. You want him? You have to go through me." And Ralph points the gun at Neron, and Neron just takes the gun out of his hand by chopping his fingers off. "Insolent fool, you can't wish me away with this trinket." And so Ralph admits to Neron that he wishes to be dead. And Neron gives Ralph what he wants and sends Sue's ring flying at Ralph, and it stabs straight through Ralph's heart, killing him immediately. Or it doesn't kill him immediately. He falls to the ground and then he's like, "It's not over yet, you bastard. I got you." Because it turns out Ralph tricked Neron into killing him. Because Neron can only give someone their wish, and because he believed that Ralph wished to die, he killed him. But it turns out that wasn't Ralph's wish. Ralph had created an incantation in the room that they're currently in, where no one can leave unless he says so. But he's dead. So by killing Ralph, Neron has trapped himself in this room forever, and he can never get out. So Ralph ends up getting the last laugh. But yeah, that's right. Ralph's dead. And at the end we get to see like his spirit kind of moving around the tower. And Beatrice DaCosta tries to call Ralph on his phone and she doesn't get an answer. She's at the graveyard where she's at the cemetery where she finds Sue Dibney's gravestone. And she puts Sue's ring... Oh, wait, no, she finds Ralph's ring, and picks it up and is like, "Oh, Ralph. And so she comes to the conclusion, like, she's put two and two together that Ralph is dead. I don't know how the ring got on top of the gravestone. I'm assuming either his spirit put it there, or it was something that was planned from the very beginning. Or maybe it's her ring. They don't really make it clear as to whose ring it is. I'm guessing it's supposed to be Sue's, and that's like the little clue to be from Ralph that he's now dead. Now, something that's really interesting about this issue, by the way, and the whole thing about Ralph Dibney's death, is that this was not planned at all by any of the people that wrote 52. There were many different endings that they came up with for Elongated Man that they were trying to push, but editorial wasn't budging, and somebody else ended up writing the death, and we don't actually know who it was, but it wasn't any of, like, it wasn't Jeff Johns, it wasn't Grant Morrison, it wasn't Mark Waid, it wasn't Greg Rucka, like, it wasn't any of the writers on 52, and it was a pretty big disagreement. Like, none of them wanted to even touch it. And they hate the fact that, like, their names are on this book that none of them actually wrote. So this is, like, the one issue that wasn't really written by any of them, which is really interesting to learn that, because you would read this and have no idea about that. So it was really interesting going and researching that and finding out that, like, yeah, Elongated Man's death had nothing, like, Ralph Dibney's death had nothing to do with the writers of 52. Issue 43, Osiris and Sobek head to the Rock of Eternity so that Osiris can meet with Captain Marvel and ask him to take away his powers, because he believes that being a Black Adam, like having Black Adam's powers, is cursing him and Kahndaq. But Black Adam shows up alongside Isis and tells Osiris to come home with them so that he can help them with the plague that's going on in Kahndaq. And so Osiris just turns to him and is like, it's your fault. You've cursed Kahndaq and you cursed me. Like, I'm suffering because of you. And he punches Black Adam. And so, you know, Captain Marvel, like, the Marvels try to calm down the fight alongside Isis. And Osiris is just like, let go of me. And he accidentally hits Isis in the face. He's like, Adriana, you're bleeding. I made you bleed. Are you alright? She's like, no. I just want to go back home and make sure that it's protected, and I want to help protect you, and we just need you to please come with us and help Kahndaq. And maybe we'll be able to help you with what you're going through. And so he promptly agrees to go with Adam, because Black Adam's like, look, you showed me how to do that. You who urged me to move on and make myself a better man. Now we are asking you to do the same, my brother. And Osiris is like, I'll try. And so Beck is complaining about how, you know, he's hungry. Meanwhile, those aliens that came to Animal Man after he died, it turns out they pulled him out of the continuum itself and started, like, experimenting on him, upgrading his abilities, and they send him back to where he was. And now Animal Man has the ability to be able to search for animals that are planets away and gain their abilities. And he senses a whole bunch of Sun Eaters nearby, and he gains their abilities and their homing abilities, so they can home in on things. And so he starts activating his powers. Meanwhile, there's an alien woman. This is really gross. There's an alien woman whose stomach bursts open and the Lady Styx emerges from her. Yeah, this is the birth of a new Lady Styx after the previous one was killed by a Sun Eater. And then we cut to Osiris talking about how he was lying to Black Adam and that he's going to leave Kahndaq. And Sobek tries to convince him not to leave, and that all he has to do is utter the words Black Adam and he'll turn back into a human, but unfortunately he won't be able to walk anymore. But he promises that he'll be there for him. And Osiris mutters the words Black Adam, turns back into a human. Sobek comes up to him and he's like, the gods, Adam's gods, they're gone. I don't hear the voices anymore. You're right again, Sobek. Perhaps my life will return to normal now. Perhaps I'll be happy again, and all of Kahndaq will be as well. Sobek? And then Sobek eats Osiris. He just chomps down on him. It's pretty messed up. And he starts ripping him apart. And Osiris tries to murmur out Black Adam, but it's too late. He dies. And Sobek utters the words, "I'm not so hungry anymore." So yeah, what a shocking ending to that. Osiris is dead, eaten by the guy he thought he was his best friend. I don't know why, but it takes Black Adam and Isis 3 days before they find Amon's body at the beginning of issue 44. But eventually they do find his rotting carcass, and they also come face to face with Sobek, and they're rightfully mad at Sobek. But honestly, I don't know, like, the reveal to them that he's dead, I don't feel the anger that Black Adam has. It feels lacking. Like, it doesn't hit as hard as I think it should have. Maybe because it just gets straight into, like, a, traditional comic book action fight after this. But, like, it doesn't feel as deep and emotional as it probably should have. But they learn that Sobek is actually Famine, one of the 4 horsemen that was created by the mad scientists on New Long Island. And they were sent to Kahndaq to destroy it, which is what they were doing. The reason why everything was dying was because death was there and the sickness was from pestilence. So they all arrive, and Black Adam and Isis start fighting them. And Adam is like, "They're monsters, they're not humans. So I have no qualms with killing them." And he grabs Sobek's mouth and cracks it in half, killing him. He then gets attacked by War, who has all the weapons of war. So he's got all the missiles and bombs and everything. Like, that's literally what he says. He's like, "I have the power of all the world's soldiers and missiles and bombs." Like, what a weird sentence. While Isis fights Pestilence, she unfortunately gets ravaged by his disease, becoming incredibly sick and ill to the point that it is completely ridden within her body, and she is going to die from it. But with her last breaths, she is able to tell nature itself to discard death from this plane of existence, and she succeeds. Her powers are able to send death away. Meanwhile, Black Adam rips apart War, and he grabs the Gatling gun that was attached to War, and he blasts it at Pestilence, destroying him. And after Isis succeeds in sending death away, Black Adam sits next to her, and Isis is basically like, "I tried to ignore what you were saying, Adam, about humans being our enemies, but this has only proven your point. These things were man-made, and I finally understand you. Man is the problem, and we need to do something about it. For the pain they put our family through. Avenge us." And then a strike of lightning happens, and she turns back to normal. She turns from Isis to Adriana. And Black Adam just looks at her and says, "Adriana." And with tears in his eyes, he looks up into the sky, and with fierce determination prepares to start war. Meanwhile, the flower, because Isis gave Renee a flower, it dies, and that gives Renee the confirmation that Isis has died. And they don't know that Osiris is dead, so they're like, "Oh, I wonder how Black Adam and Osiris are feeling." And Richard Dragon turns to her and is like, "You should go to Kahndaq and find out. Oh, and before you go, here's a hat that looks exactly like the Question's hat, so that we can allude to you becoming the Question." And so she puts the hat on, and we get a shot of her wearing the hat. It's like, see where it leads you. So, yeah, that's our second allusion towards, Renee becoming the next Question. Alright. Issue 45 begins with the funeral of Isis and Osiris. Captain Marvel tries to show Black Adam his compassion, but Black Adam just knocks his hand away and is like, "Leave me alone." He flies away, with Renee watching from below because she's visiting Kahndaq to go and visit Adam. She goes and visits him and tries to relate to him, saying that she lost somebody recently. She knows all about the guilt and stuff. And Adam is just an asshole. You know, he threatens to kill her. He's like, you always have presumed too much. Now you presume a friendship that does not exist. And Renee's like, Isis was my friend. It's like, it is in her memory that I will allow you to leave here alive. I do not require your help, and I do not want your pity. Look to your own affairs and leave me to attend to mine. The last of the 4 horsemen who murdered my wife and brother fled to Baalia and was given aid and comfort by the government. A government bought by Intergang, much as they tried to buy their way into Karnak. But Intergang has other targets, don't they? Isn't it time you went home, Renee Montoya? And then he exits the building and heads straight to Baalia, where Death currently is. And Bruno Mannheim basically comes on the camera to Baalia and is like, Black Adam's gonna come after you and he's gonna kill you all, so goodbye. And then Black Adam just breaks through a nearby window. Death kills a couple of guys in there and makes his escape. Black Adam grabs the president of Baalia, and the president is like, the 4 horsemen did not come from Baalia. I beg of you mercy. Like, this is mercy. It will be quick. And then I don't know how he kills this guy, but he kind of just like throws him up in the air and the guy's head explodes. Like, they don't really make it clear that he just goes, and his head just goes. Everyone starts shooting at him, and Black Adam presumably kills them off panel and smashes his way through a nearby wall. He attacks a tank that has come to try and destroy him, and one of the men is like, where is the horseman? Where is Death? Black Adam's like, here, and he grabs the tank and smacks it down on top of them, killing them both. A lot of different governments around the world are seeing this happen, and they're like, oh geez, like Black Adam is starting a war with the entire world. He is starting World War III, and we gotta do something. We gotta stop him. And so Alan Scott, the Green Lantern, it's like containment. Like, are they out of their mind? We're told that the Security Council will have a further decision within the hour. There won't be a Baalia in an hour. It's like, believe me, Sasha, we know that better than anyone. So Alan Scott puts on he becomes Green Lantern because obviously it seems like he's planning to go and try and stop Black Adam himself alongside Mr. Terrific and Beatrice DaCosta, Fire. Meanwhile, Amanda Waller wants Atom Smasher to go and stop Black Adam alongside her Suicide Squad, but Atom Smasher has no interest in doing that, and he's gonna go and do it by himself without her, because he points out the fact that, like, she's rigging this whole thing anyway. Like, when Osiris killed Persuader, she edited the footage and added footage of him smiling to make it look like he enjoyed killing Persuader, and so Atom Smasher's like, because you've already done shit like that, I'm not helping you. And so Black Adam continues just killing innocent people in Baalia, and he sees a flower on the ground, and it makes him go like, he starts like crying on the flower. He's like, and then a bottle gets thrown at him from the crowd, and in his head he hears the words, avenge us. It's like, you took them away again. You took them all away. Where is the horseman? Where is Death? And Black Adam just runs into this crowd of people and presumably kills them off panel. You don't get to see it, but I'm pretty sure he killed all those people. The Great 10 from China are planning to take down Black Adam as well. They've got all of their people together, and they're going to go and fight him too. They're former allies of his. Black Adam continues his rampage through Baalia, asking for Death to come, and because he's killed so many people, Death obliges and arrives, and Black Adam fights him. Death has the upper hand at first, but then Black Adam starts saying Shazam, which causes lightning to come smashing down, hurting Death. He says it once, which turns him back into a human, and then he says it again, and it zaps Death with even more lightning. It turns Black Adam back into a human, not Death. And then he grabs a nearby stone pillar and he smashes it on Death's back, and grabs him by the head and is like, you're going to tell me who sent you. And then, almighty Death, I am going to spend the rest of the night slowly ending your life. Meanwhile, on Oolong Island, the mad scientists all hear that Black Adam is coming, and he is not happy. And while most of them are afraid of this, Dr. Savannah is actually really happy. The Black Marvel himself, at my mercy. Stations, gentlemen, bring him on. It's such a great moment of seeing him so excited to fight Black Adam. Alright, issue 46 is great, by the way. So, Black Adam is going to head to Oolong Island in order to find out who sent the Four Horsemen to Karnak. But it's gotten to a point where he doesn't even care about that anymore. He just cares about killing as many people as he can that get in his way. So, they all prepare for his arrival on the island by creating all sorts of giant robots and things to try and kill Black Adam. Like, there's this giant green robot called the Sueprnova Mark II that Adam just blasts his way through, like, rips it to pieces. He gets attacked by Insectrons, and he rips those apart as well, and destroys them. There's a giant crab robot, not a crab robot, a giant scorpion robot that tries to kill him. All these turrets come out of the ground around the island and start blasting at him, but they're not doing anything. Meanwhile, Will is working on the plutonium robot that he's been building. There's also a weird moment where that blonde-headed doctor who has no name just like pushes Will into another room and says like, "Oh, doesn't all this kind of like chaos and stuff turn you on?" And she like makes out with him off panel. She grabs a gun and says that like, this is all her fault, so she's gonna go out and try and admit to Black Adam that it was her because she's gonna try and stop him from killing all these scientists and stuff. She's like, I've used people for so long, and this is what's happened. Now I'm gonna, try and sacrifice myself. And so she goes outside with her gun. Will realizes that she's gone missing. She goes outside. She's like, I made them. I made the things that killed your family, you arrogant alpha prick. It was me. And Black Adam just doesn't give a shit and runs straight past her into the place where all the scientists are. Maybe that's why she doesn't have a name, because she's supposed to be a character that nobody cares about, not even Black Adam. Like, that would be genius if they were like, yeah, we didn't give her a name because you're not supposed to care. She's a nobody. In reality. So Black Adam breaks into the facility where all the scientists are, and immediately they just pull out all their best death rays and weapons and start blasting him with them. And so they've blinded him long enough that they can then hit him with a suspension ray that'll keep him from being able to move. And then T.O. Morrow reveals that he has Tesseract technology, which allows him to open up portals. And he opens up a portal inside Black Adam's brain, which causes him to have a seizure. He's just like, ah! And then he falls on the ground, and they start, like, pouring acid on his head and, like, kicking him and stuff. And then they place a neuron crown on his head, which will stop his brain from functioning, allowing them to defeat him. They beat Black Adam. And then Dr. Savannah is like, take him away into my lab, get the acid pools ready. I'm looking forward to... Black Adam made the mistake of coming here because now he's given me the chance to use him as my latest test subject. Meanwhile, T.O. Morrow doesn't really care that they've beaten Black Adam. All he cares about is the fact that he's won the auction to buy Red Tornado. That's right, Red Tornado went on auction, and, T.O. Morrow bought him, so he's really excited. It's like, I'll say it if no one else will. Feel free to cackle hysterically, gentlemen. Meanwhile, Lex Luthor gets arrested, but then Clark Kent looks at him and is like, son of a... Still, Chief, this way, hurry! He's like, what's going on? He's like, I know Lex Luthor, and this is a trap, like, this is another thing, he's trying to pull another one over on you, he's trying to pull a fast one. He's in that room right there, trust me. He's using his X-ray vision, obviously, but he's trying to pretend that he just knows. Still breaks his way through the wall that Clark points at, or the door, and Lex Luthor is just in there eating a burger. And they arrest him again, and it turns out that the other Lex Luthor was actually Hannibal in disguise. Turns out he didn't die during the fight against Steel. Lex Luthor tries to brush it off as like, oh, my lawyer gave me the wrong date. I didn't realize that today was the arrangement. Like, yeah, clearly. Meanwhile, the JSA head to what's left of Bialia, looking for any survivors. And they don't find a single survivor. Like, Black Adam obliterated everybody. And that's when Atom Smasher shows up, and he's like, hey guys, I know I betrayed you earlier, but I was wondering if I could rejoin you and help you find Black Adam. Alright, so issue 47 begins with Tim Drake and Bruce Wayne have traveled to Nanda Parbat because Bruce is on a journey of self-clarity, and his encounter with the Ten-Eyed Brothers didn't go the way he hoped. They didn't cut out the demons like they promised. So now he's trying this purification ritual, which requires him to enter a cave and then emerge from it, similarly to Jesus. And then we get a flashback of Tim Drake talking to Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman. This is the first time that we've seen her in 52, and it's the first time we've seen her in almost a year's worth of stories. And yeah, she talks to Tim about what Bruce is going to be doing next, and yeah, Tim just kind of fills her in that they're going to be going to Nanda Parbat to try this purification ritual. So it was cool seeing her. I didn't know it was her at first because they don't say who it is right away. I thought he was talking to Talia al Ghul, but later on, it confirms that it's Wonder Woman. Meanwhile, Intergang are trying to find out where Kate Kane is, and they eventually figure out that Kate Kane, whichever Kane they're looking for, and Batwoman are the same person. So if they find Batwoman, then they also find Kate Kane. So they go looking for both of them. They go looking for Batwoman. William Magnus is finishing the touches on his new robot, Plutonium. But Plutonium is acting really weird and is in all sorts of pain and stuff, and is saying all this weird stuff. And so Will's middlemen are begging him to turn Plutonium off because he's far too dangerous, and Will obliges. Meanwhile, Buddy Baker has absorbed the powers of a Sun Eater, and that gives him the ability to travel through space and time. And so he travels outside of space and time, where he meets the yellow aliens that I was talking about before, who I think might be the Controllers. They haven't confirmed who they are, but they might be the Controllers, which is a race of beings who are the rivals to the Guardians. But they confirmed to him that his powers will allow him to get back to Earth, but unfortunately, his wife has moved on already. She's found somebody new, which is kind of crazy, because apparently she's already moved on from him in a month or two, which is very fast to move on from, your dead husband, who you've been married to for years. So yeah, that causes him quite a bit of distress. He's like, Ellen! As he's, traveling back to Earth using his new powers. Meanwhile, Beast Boy tries to recruit Natasha Irons into the Teen Titans, but she says no, because she's starting her own team with her father, and that team is Steelworks. Carla decides to join Steelworks, and she also kisses John, which is the first time that happens, so it seems like those two characters are getting together. Meanwhile, Renee Montoya goes to Kate Kane's apartment, where she finds that it's been completely torn apart, so she knows that Intergang has got her, and that they need to go and save her. And Nightwing arrives and tells Renee that he's going to team up with her to help her find Kate. Then Diana goes and speaks with Ramakrishna, and Ramakrishna decides to show Diana the truth of herself. It's when did you, in all your perfection, ever share the pains mortals feel each day of their lives? Until now. Welcome to the world, Wonder Woman. Here is wisdom. And off-panel, she shows Diana a bunch of shit that will probably be filled in on later. And then it's revealed that Bruce has gone through his purification trial. He emerges from the cave with a giant rock in front of it. And Tim just sees him and is like, Bruce, are you okay? And Bruce just looks real happy. He's just like, yeah. It's probably the happiest I've ever seen Bruce, honestly. It's also one of the few times where you see him just wearing, casual clothes. Alright, so issue 48. Nightwing and Renee Montoya team up together in search for Kate Kane, who has been kidnapped by Intergang. Meanwhile, they're setting her up for her sacrifice towards the demon Kane, or the gods, or whatever Bruno Mannheim and Intergang believe in. They've also set up a ton of devices throughout Gotham City that once they're set off, will set the entire city ablaze. The devices open up and big pillars of fire come shooting out of them. Nightwing and Renee find that out the hard way when they head to a warehouse where one of these devices is located, and one of Intergang's monsters opens up the device, causing the flames to start erupting from it. So Nightwing and Renee have to get to safety, which they do. They actually get to safety alongside one of Intergang's human-animal hybrids, and they watch as like these pillars of fire start shooting out of the sky and begin burning up parts of the city. And so Renee tasks Nightwing with finding these devices and shutting them down, because he's a detective and he's good at that kind of stuff, while she is going to head off and find Kate and stop Bruno from sacrificing her, which he is planning on doing at dawn. And so Renee takes out a familiar mask, which is the Question's mask, and she puts it on, and she becomes the Question officially. And she has her own costume. A big puff of smoke comes, like, you know, around her, and she emerges from it as the Question. And I guess she quickly swapped clothes while she was in there, because she started off with a brown coat and then emerges with a blue coat, just like the Question does. So, yeah, she heads to a nearby cathedral where Kate is being held by Bruno. He has a knife in his hand and he's ready to stab her, but that's when Renee comes in and tries to stop him. However, she doesn't get to Kate in time, and Bruno actually stabs Kate in the chest. And then Renee quickly shoots Bruno right afterward and is like, you gotta get the knife out. And Kate's like, no, that'll make it worse. Where'd your face go? You're looking at it. It's like, Bruno's like, not for long, and attacks her from behind and starts throws Renee around, grabs Renee's gun, goes to shoot Renee, but that's when Kate throws the knife that Bruno had before into his back, killing him. He just falls over dead, and then Kate and Renee fall over to the ground and pass out. Basically, they just fall onto the ground together, and they're just like, stay with me. This time it's different. Meanwhile, the Science Squad, who are the mad scientists that defeated Black Adam, have him held captured, and they know that Alan Scott wants him, and so Shang-Tzu decides that he's going to hold a bidding for Black Adam, and he's like, how high should I start the bid? Alright, so issue 49, Alan Scott decides to turn away Shang-Tzu's offers for a bid for Black Adam and says that they're going to break into Oolong Island and take Black Adam by force if they had to. So Shang-Tzu was like, alright, well, I guess we're going to have to put up our forces, get all our weapons prepared for when Green Lantern and his JSA arrive. You know, he's got Atom Smasher and Power Girl with him. But that's when the Great Ten, or at least a couple of members of the Great Ten, show up, the superheroes from China. And they're going to stop Alan Scott and Power Girl from breaking into the base for reasons that are explained later. For now, Shang-Tzu goes and visits Will to see the progress on plutonium, and Shang-Tzu also reveals to Will that he knows that Will has been rebuilding the Metal Men, and Will is like, well, technically I haven't been rebuilding the Metal Men, so there's no way you would know that, because the Metal Men build themselves. You know, all I have to do is create the responses, which are what power them, and then they create themselves. And Shang-Tzu doesn't know that the Metal Men that have been created are really small. So they all come out of hiding, and they all attack Shang-Tzu, covering his eyes and stuff. It's pretty funny just seeing him get attacked by these tiny Metal Men. So he starts firing his weapons everywhere, and Will's having to dodge it and everything. Meanwhile, the other scientists are going and grabbing their weapons. And this is when a big twist is revealed. Shang-Su is a member of the Great Ten. I mean, it's not a twist to us, but it's a twist to the, it's a twist to the JSA, I guess. But yeah, he's a member of the Great Ten, and that's why they're trying to stop Black Adam from escaping, because they know that if he escapes, and the world finds out that Shang-Su was behind it, and that he's a member of the Great Ten, then it will look really bad on China and the Great Ten, and they'll get a lot of ridicule. So they're trying to stop the bad publicity. Will Magnus gives Tio Moro a way to escape. He has like a little device that he stole from Dr. Savannah that will allow Tio Moro to teleport himself to Dr. Savannah's robot that is currently out in orbit. And Tio Moro is like, why are you doing this for me? And Will's like, because you are always a true friend to me. And, you know, no one's going to notice you when you're gone. Like, no one's going to notice you disappear and leave this place. And so Tio Moro escapes with Will's help. Dr. Savannah also makes his escape, and Black Adam swears that he will pull him limb from limb if he ever gets out of, if he ever gets out of Oolong Island. And then Will grabs a gun which fires metal men and shoots it at Shang-Su, blowing part of his head apart. And then Will's just like, you shouldn't have taken away my meds. I told you I do crazy things without my meds. And then he's just like, and he just keeps shooting at Shang-Su, just blasting apart his head until he kills him. Shang-Su is blown apart and dies. And it's at this moment that the JSA enter the building and Will leaves. He's like, Dr. Magnus, Will Magnus, is that you? He's like, I think so. I surrender. And turns himself in. And then Atom Smasher and Power Girl go around like picking up scientists, asking where Black Adam is being held. Atom Smasher gets told of Black Adam's whereabouts. He goes and finds his former friend and unties him and begs Black Adam to tell him that he didn't kill all those innocent people in Bialia. And obviously he did, and Black Adam can't say that he didn't, and he said that he needs to get revenge on the people that killed his family, and if they want a world war, like, they're gonna get one. And so he leaves to find Intergang, I presume, or whoever Black Adam believes was responsible for killing his family, in order to destroy them. And meanwhile, the Infinity Inc. are talking about how they need to prove to the world that the Everymen are good, because, you know, Lex Luthor has tarnished their reputation for being a bad guy, and they're waiting for the one thing to come along, like the one world-ending threat for them to stop that will prove that they are true heroes. And that thing just happens to be Black Adam. So I'm assuming that Infinity Inc. are going to try and kill Black Adam or stop him, and it's not going to end very well. Alright, issue 50, Black Adam heads to China in order to fight the Great Ten because they were responsible for his family's death. They took part in creating the Four Horsemen of Apocalypse. Captain Marvel tries to stop him, but Black Adam just blows straight through him and into China. And the JSA can't go in and stop him because China won't let them enter their border. So they just have to watch as Black Adam just tears apart the Great Ten. Like, he just smashes his way through every single member of the Great Ten. They throw everything they have at him. He just kills them all. Like, the Yeti, that was from one of the previous issues, he shows up, gets killed immediately. Black Adam just breaks his neck. And so the General, who is one of the members of the Great Ten, is like they force him to let the JSA in, because the JSA are their only hope, because otherwise Black Adam is going to kill them all. And so he says, like, let them in, and then the JSA get let in, as well as some of the members of the Justice League, like Green Arrow and Steel and stuff are there. They don't do anything, really. Wonder Woman is also here for some reason, but I don't know who it is. I don't think it's Diana. And if it is, they don't mention it at all, but she's in the background. She's like a background character. She doesn't really do very much. But they all fight Black Adam. Just a huge, massive blowout happens between the JSA, the Justice League, and Black Adam. And Captain Marvel decides that he has a plan. Because they're not going to be able to beat Black Adam straight up. You know. Especially because, like, one of their only plans was to shoot a missile at him. And Booster Gold showed up and was like, that missile is not going to do anything to him. I need it anyway. And he takes the missile and leaves. And, no, Captain Marvel has a plan. He's going to create a magic spell that'll help depower Black Adam. And so he works with Zatanna and Mary Marvel to create the spell and start enchanting it. Meanwhile, the other heroes are dealing with Black Adam, keeping him busy. So Alan Scott tries to get Infinity Inc. to help them fight Black Adam, and Infinity Inc. are like, fight him? No way, we got better things to do. And they, like, run off, scared. The JSA are like, figures. And so Zatanna, Captain Marvel, the Phantom Stranger, and Zachary Zatara, who is Zatanna's brother, all create this magic spell that will supposedly depower Black Adam. They charge up Captain Marvel with it. He gets charged up by this huge surge of electricity, and he just runs in and smashes straight into Black Adam, causing a huge explosion, which sends Black Adam flying, and it turns him back to normal. And he tries to say Shazam in order to get his powers back, and it doesn't work. And Atom Smasher catches him as he falls from the sky. And so now that Black Adam has been defeated, Jay Garrick turns to Captain Marvel. He's like, hey Billy, what's going to stop Black Adam from just saying Shazam again and getting his powers back? And Captain Marvel says that he's changed Black Adam's word, the one that activates his powers, and that he'll never figure out what it is. And so we see Black Adam, like, walking through a town in Karnak, trying all these different words, saying all these different words, with none of them working. Meanwhile, Tio Morrow arrives in Australia, where he finds Red Tornado and starts working on him, configuring him. He's like, let me have a look. Like, you've been to the Great Beyond. Let's have a look. Oh, God. And he sees something. He takes the mask off. He's like, oh, dear God. And a voice says, you got that right, Morrow. And Tio Morrow turns around to see Booster Gold and Rip Hunter standing behind him. And Rip Hunter looks at Tio Morrow and says, get your ass in gear, Prof. Because we're already way out of time. Alright, issue 51 begins with Buddy Baker's wife, and it turns out that she hasn't moved on from him. She is still grieving her husband, and she feels like she will never get over him. As she turns to Roger, the guy that's trying to get with her, and is like, thank you for giving me a lift home, but I'm not over Buddy. And when she returns home, Buddy suddenly appears in front of her, shining as bright as the sun, you know, because he's got the powers of a Sun Eater. And he's like, hey, honey, I'm home. Like, you know, I wasn't worried about Roger at all because he's got a hairpiece. Like, meanwhile, I saved the universe, you know, so obviously I'm going to be the one that, you know, gets to be with you. Unfortunately, they can't hug or anything because he still has the Sun Eater powers, so she has to stay away from him until his powers cool down. Meanwhile, it's revealed that the new Wonder Woman is in fact Donna Troy, and that Diana Prince has become a member of the Department of Metahuman Affairs. It's an identity that Bruce has helped create for her while she's, you know, not being Wonder Woman. Also, the Cult of Connor has been reimagined. There used to be a cult all about resurrecting Connor. They're no longer about that. They're all about just honoring him. And they're not the only people that are honoring him. Tim Drake has decided to change the colors of his costume from red, green, and black to just red and black, because those are the colors of Connor's costume. I didn't know that there was a reason that Tim changed his colors, but knowing that there is, like, that's cool. I was not expecting that. Adam Strange wakes up on the planet Rann, where his eyes have been fixed by one of the by Sardath, one of the professors on Ran, and Sardath wants him to help Ran because there's these fire beings that have been attacking the planet for the last 7 days. But Jon Stewart is like, hey, let the man hang out with his family who he hasn't seen in almost a year. You know, we can take care of this one. And so Adam Strange gets to reunite with his wife and daughter, and they head off to spend time together. Lobo finally returns to the Exalted One, the one that because this entire time, the reason he took the Emerald Eye was to give it to the Exalted One. And when he gets there, he meets him, we finally get to see him, he's a giant dolphin, and Lobo asks him, he's like, now that I've given you the eye, you can finally set me free. And also, why did you need this eye to begin with? And the Exalted One is like, well, apparently there was a prophecy that this eye is going to kill me, so I want to keep it near me at all times so that it doesn't happen, so that I can be safe. And Lobo's like, kill you? You don't say. And then he just kills the Exalted One with the eye off panel. It's pretty funny. He just blasts it at him. Meanwhile, his dolphin friend is just like, ah, like screaming next to him. So the Baker household gets a knock on the door, and Buddy's wife opens it to find a couple of minions for the Lady Styx who are there to kill Buddy, but they just get incinerated by Starfire, and Starfire arrives because she needs to deliver Buddy's jacket to him because she took it from him when she thought he died. He's like, I came here all this way to give you this. And then she passes out, and Buddy's son is like, hey, can we keep her? He's like, Cliff. And then meanwhile, evil Skeets shows up in the Rocky Mountains where Tio Morrow is waiting for him, and it finally reveals what 52 means. So there's a couple of meanings. The first thing is that 52 is referring to 52 worlds. At least that's what Tio Morrow says. It says 52 worlds, 52 Morrows, so it seems that there's 52 alternate Earths. And also, 52 is also referring to the 52 weeks it took for Mr. Mind to go through his gestation period in his cocoon. Because if you remember, at the very beginning of the book, like issue 1, Mr. Mind went into a cocoon and then they found an empty cocoon. It's because this entire time, for 52 weeks, he was gestating inside the body of Skeets, transforming into his new monstrous form. That's right, this entire time Skeets was actually Mr. Mind in disguise. And we get to see Mr. Mind's monstrous form. He looks pretty freaking horrifying, though I think he's still really small. He just looks terrifying. And so Booster and Rip Hunter are like, alright, it's too late. We gotta get out of here. And Booster's like, where are we going? And Rip's like, back to where it all started. And they teleport away into his time capsule. Alright, issue 52, the final issue, and this was incredibly confusing. There's a lot of time travel stuff that goes on in this. The whole confrontation at the end is so confusing, but I will try to explain it the best I can. So Booster Gold and Rip Hunter end up in the middle of the multiverse where they see all 52 Earths surrounding them, and Booster Gold is just like, how are there so many Earths? I mean, like, I thought there was only one. And Rip Hunter explains to him that back when Alexander Luthor created all those Earths and then merged them all together into one Earth, well, Rip Hunter was there and watched it all happen. And what people don't know is that that Earth that he created had so much energy inside itself that it couldn't contain, that it replicated itself without anyone knowing. It replicated itself into 52 Earths without anyone knowing. And then those 52 Earths, like, vibrated out of not out of existence, but they created their own vibrational frequency. Or they existed on their own plane of existence at a slightly different vibrational frequency, but they all exist in the same place. If you've seen The Flash, they explain it better than that. So all the Earths are like right next to each other, but they're all at different vibrational sequences, like frequencies, which is why you can't see them all. And so, the reason why Mr. Mind has transformed in his big monster form is because he wants to eat the entire multiverse. So he appears in front of Booster Gold and Rip Hunter, and that's when Sueprnova shows up. Now you'd be wondering, isn't Sueprnova supposed to be Booster Gold? Well, he was, except this Sueprnova isn't Booster Gold. This Sueprnova is Daniel Carter, because when Daniel Carter was sent into the time loop ages ago, Rip Hunter pulled him out of the time loop and gave him the costume and made him Sueprnova again. And so he is the key to stopping Mr. Mind. So what Rip Hunter does is he travels back in time where he finds Dr. Sivana, who has his suspensionator, or whatever it's called. It's like a time machine that allows you to suspend things in time. So he steals that from Dr. Sivana. He also shoots Dr. Sivana. It's pretty messed up. He shoots him, steals the suspensionator, or the suspensionator, and then Sueprnova uses his abilities to transport Mr. Mind from the multiverse to Rip Hunter's underground bunker, and then they use the suspensionator on him, which transforms him back into his caterpillar form, and then they lock him inside Skeet's empty body, and then Booster Gold picks up Skeets with Mr. Mind inside it, and he throws it at Daniel, and Daniel catches it and jumps into a time portal where he travels all the way back to day one before everything happened, and he chucks the Skeets that has Mr. Mind in it into the ground, creating a huge crevice. And then Mr. Mind crawls out of the crevice in his caterpillar form, and Dr. Sivana finds him and puts him in a test tube where he'll never escape. I think I explained it as well as I could. You know, I had to reread this like 3 or 4 times. I even decided to go online to try and like look up, like, just to tell something to explain to me like what happened, because it's really hard to, you know, understand what happened. And that's how they defeat Mr. Mind. There's also a part of this where they travel through all these different Earths. Mr. Mind is attacking all these different Earths, but that doesn't really matter. They beat Mr. Mind. It's really confusing, but they do it. And there's also a moment where Booster Gold... There's a really nice moment where Booster Gold travels back in time and he sees Blue Beetle before he died. And he gets to say, like, goodbye to him for the first time. He's like, hey, you're gonna receive that card from the Justice League any day now. And Blue Beetle's like, haha, that's so funny. Hey, have you seen this thing lying around that looks like a scarab? And before Booster can answer him, he's like, I bet it turns up just where you least expect it. It's like, yeah, it'll be right under my nose. So you were born in the future? If you knew how I died, you wouldn't tell me, would you? And he's like, nah, even if I did know, I'm only gonna say you died a hero, Ted. Dressed as a dung beetle. And he teleports away, and Blue Beetle's like, huh? Where did he go? So that's a really nice moment. But, yeah, after they defeat Mr. Mind, they, travel back through the multiverse, and Rip Hunter shows Booster that the 52 Earths exist, and that this is home. Like, these 52 Earths. And it's also revealed at the very end that everyone's looking for Black Adam, or there are a lot of people that are looking for Black Adam. They don't know where he is, but they're currently searching for him. And Ralph Dibney and Sue Dibney are now ghost detectives, because a giant pit from hell opens up in the middle of a school, and then the ghosts of Ralph Dibney and Sue Dibney show up, and they're like, ooh, you know, I smell a case. So that's fun, but I'm pretty sure it's something that nobody does anything with. Booster Gold goes to Will Magnus, and has Skeets get rebuilt, which is nice. So Skeets gets rebuilt, and he's reunited with Booster. Renee Montoya gets rid of the question mark that is on the bat signal and replaces it with the bat symbol. And Kate Kane gets out of the hospital, and one of her friends asks her who saved her life, like who brought her to the ER, and who gave her the pseudo skin bandage. And Kate is like, I promise I'll tell you, Mallory. And she kind of looks outside her apartment window, and she sees Renee Montoya as the question from a distance, shining the bat symbol on her apartment. And so Renee Montoya is like, I have a question. Are you ready? And that's how it ends. That's the end of 52. Yeah. Overall, I think this series was great. Like, I think it's as good as anybody says it is. It's one of the best stories I've ever read. I just love how all of the stories connected together, and they all had really satisfying endings to them. I think my favorite storyline throughout the whole series was probably the Black Adam one. That one was incredible, but I don't think there was a single story in this that I didn't enjoy. The ending was very confusing, and I think that kind of soured the ending for me. You know, I had a really hard time explaining what even happened, and an even harder time just understanding it myself when I read it. But I highly recommend reading this series. Don't let the fact that it focuses on a lot of obscure characters be a turn off, because it is not. It's such a great series, and it's worth reading. You know, even if you might know what happens in it, it's still worth reading anyway, because it's just a great story. And yeah, and I agree with people when they say that this is one of the greatest DC stories of all time. I can see that, because having read it, you know, it was really good. So that's gonna be it for this week. Yeah, next week I'm going to be covering something completely different, not Marvel or DC. I'm going to be covering the Final Destination comic book, which is called Final Destination Spring Break. It's something that I've been working on for a little bit now, and I'm going to be releasing that next week because I wanted to do something different, and I'm a fan of Final Destination. I learned they had a comic book, and I wanted to cover that on an episode, so look forward to that next week. And then the week after that, I will be doing a DC event called Amazon's Attack, which is a Wonder Woman event that came out after 52 but before Countdown. So I'm going to be covering that the week after next week. So we got Final Destination Spring Break, and then we got Amazon's Attack. So look forward to those. And yeah, hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next week.
In the wake of infinite crisis, heroes arise from the fall. The multiverse is shattered, but the story's far from small. From the ashes of destruction, 52 worlds align. Each week a new chapter, a new tale to unwind. 52 weeks of power with immense drive. In the heart of the chaos, we fight for life. From Booster Gold to Black Adam's reign, in the multiverse we break the chain. Renee Montoya finds her path. The questions call to heed, while Ralph Dibney's sorrow deepens. Searching for the creed, Steel's hammer strikes. secrets, a tapestry of fate. We stand united, undivided, as we storm the gates. 52, we talk power, wisdom, and strife. In the heart of the chaos, we fight for life. From Booster Gold to Black Adam's reign, in the multiverse we break the chain. 52, the legacy of heroes bold and true. In every